This three-man front on a very interesting and busy weekend as we get ready for wall-to-wall hoops this weekend as the IBOB Part 2 takes place tomorrow. You can hear the game right here on Jocks 94.5. We've got the very latest Joe Lunardi bracketology. I've got it in my hand here. We will go over that. We'll also talk to Coach Wimp Sanderson at the bottom of the hour. Barrett Salee, get a spring training report from the Braves next hour. Blake Lovell in the 12 o'clock hour. SEC basketball, major topic with him. And Matt Baker from The Athletic covers college football. He has been all over the ACC lawsuit against Clemson and against, of course, Florida State. We will get his final thoughts on what really went down in regards to how these institutions and the conference came together and decided to bury the old hatchet between those three. So we'll talk to him later on in the program. But we start with basketball. Let's start with what took place last night. Landrum, you were there in attendance at Bartow Arena as the Blazers, for the fifth consecutive year, win their 20th game. And man, it's just it's crazy to think with a program that has the history that UAB has, for them to be able to put together the fifth consecutive 20-win season. And on top of that, they now have accumulated the most wins in a 5-year period in the history of the school. So it was a big night for the Blazers, big win over FAU.
Yeah, it's a huge accomplishment for Andy Kennedy and FAU. Man, they came out, they were shooting the ball pretty well, and we know that program is not what it was when Dusty May was there. But yeah, UAB responding, especially in the second half, only turning it over 3 times, Pat. That is a recipe for success. 82, 83% from the charity stripe, if you can get there. That is a recipe for success. This is not a team that's known for their outside shooting. You didn't get that last night, but what you did get was a lot of solid handling of the basketball, and Jabari McGee was a big part of that.
He sure was. A career-high 27 points last night, and you mentioned the fact that UAB didn't turn the ball over, unfortunately, and it's just when you hear Andy Kennedy after the games, and you know, he's a guy that prides himself on defense, and UAB that's kind of been their Achilles this year. They let FAU shoot 62% last night in the first half, and that was the big difference. And then UAB came out in the second half. They started getting stops. They started shooting the ball better. So you can tell Andy's pretty frustrated. Does not like the fact that UAB defensively is not one of the better teams in America, because offensively speaking, UAB's high up in almost every offensive category: scoring, efficiency, fast break points, all those type things, and rebounding. But the defensive side has been able to kind of give some lesser teams opportunities at times.
It seems like this UAB team seems like it's so close defensively, because I enjoy watching when I go to Bartow Arena. I enjoy watching Andy Kennedy on the sideline, and you know that he is not in the typical coaching box. He likes to work the entire
baseline.
He'll
stand
sideline
on the baseline next to the bench.
But I find myself looking at his reactions to things, and several different times last night where there were stops that needed to be made, whether it was a guy that didn't cut somebody off on the baseline, or he allowed a man to get deep into the paint. You can just see the reaction. So it seems like UAB is very, very close, but for whatever reason, they have those lapses. But a great win last night. You go to New Orleans on Sunday. Hopefully you take care of business there, but you know that you're going to get a couple of buys in the American tournament. Yeah,
it's the most important thing, because you can go to New Orleans and you can just play footloose and fancy free. Hopefully nobody gets injured, and you get in there and you play well enough that you can get another win, because you don't want to go to the postseason tournament with a loss under your belt. But more importantly, they are solid now as the 3 seed. And it's also important because you do not have to play Memphis until the championship game. And that was huge. So that is locked, stock, barrel in. So they will be on the same side of the bracket with North Texas.
I like that lineup that they had last night, and Budda Johnson coming off the bench. But AJ Vasquez, didn't mention his name, but AJ was really big last night as well. But yeah, hopefully Blazers, they can find that postseason magic, make a run there in the state of Texas, and we can be talking about the Blazers punching their ticket, and we got several other teams in this state that have a chance to punch their ticket.
Yeah, look at North Alabama. What the Lions are going to hopefully be able to do this weekend.
Jacksonville State,
and
South Alabama.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's a good time to follow basketball in the state of Alabama. We've got the IBOB coming up tomorrow. We will talk a lot about that with Wimp Sanderson and you throughout the program. I just saw a few moments ago before we came on the air, as of this moment, Auburn is an 8.5-point favorite against Alabama. You know, we talked about this yesterday, kind of threw out our ideas of where that number would be. I actually thought it'd be a little bit higher. I actually thought it might even get up to 10, but as of right now, it's at 8.5.
Well, and according to one basketball coach, when it comes to Vegas odds, and I think I said this on the show, football home field advantage gives you about is like 3.5 points according to Vegas. How much they factor that in, and it's a little bit more in college basketball when it comes to home court. So if you want to use that rationale, maybe you don't need to, Conrad. But I was going to try to help you that basically Vegas set this thing at around 4.
Hey, 8.5 points is a lot. I'll take that.
Would you? So you would play Alabama in the 8.5?
Are you still going to watch?
Am I still going to watch? No,
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch the game, but I would play Bama, but I'm not going to watch it.
I know that Rembrandt's got some pieces on display in Birmingham this weekend.
You're not
If you and
watching it at
Paige
all?
Would like to go and
No, I'm not watching
a
the
day
game,
of
but I'll have-
culture.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So you would take Alabama in the 8.5, but would you take the under or the over of 177.5?
Ooh, 177.5.
Well, you got to go over.
Yeah. If you're going to play that, you got
Yeah.
to take the over.
Well, that's one of those. It might very well go under. I could see maybe a rock fight breaking out, but if it does go over, I'll never forgive myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you look at it, Alabama's number 1 in offense. Auburn is 95th in defense. Bama's got the 6th worst defense in college basketball.
Alabama's also really good at scoring points and still losing games here lately. So
We're still blaming Pete Golding.
that leads me to believe that even though, I mean, the over didn't look like it might hit in that Florida game. It was a little sketchy there. And then, of course, all those free
The
throws
last
at
6
the end.
minutes, it got it went crazy. It was like last night. I mean, you had Michigan State at Iowa, and Michigan, I think the over was like 150.
100 points.
That was like
Right.
153, something like that. And Michigan State was a big favorite, and Iowa just took it to them in the first half, and then the second half came out, and I think Michigan State scored like 58 points
Yeah.
in the second half, and they held on for, I think it ended up being like a 6 or 7 point win, but within like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, they were up by like 14 points.
Mhm.
I mean, they just absolutely took it to them, and that over just like, don't ask me how I knew what the over was.
On the advice of Rocco, when he joined the show yesterday and he told us about UC San Diego, did anybody play that game last
I
night
did not.
with the Tritons?
The only thing
I don't know what the line was.
The only thing I played was the over of Iowa and Michigan State.
And tonight you got Illinois and Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
like that.
Well, that's Molly calls them Purdue.
That's good. No, that's
So,
good.
It replaced
She's here with us
Purdue.
in spirit. Purdue. Oh, that's even
Purdue.
better. That's
Purdue
even
is good.
better.
Yeah. I have nothing against Purdue. I just throw this out there.
All right, so Joe Lenardi has just put out a few moments ago his new list, and no big surprise, you've got the Auburn Tigers solidly as the number 1 overall seed. And what was his quote on Auburn, Conrad? What did he say about how overwhelming they are? as
Best
the-
team God ever created.
Almost.
The best team or the best resume that he's seen since 2015 Kentucky, which, if you remember, that's the team that went undefeated until the national championship game and lost. So that's pretty good praise there.
60% of Auburn's game have come against Q1 competition.
Can't argue the
They were
resume.
15-3 in those games.
Yeah, 15-3, 6-2 on the road.
It's remarkable.
And Ken Palm's got Auburn overwhelmingly as the number 1 team strength of schedule. Alabama's number 2, according to Ken Palm.
I know they've struggled
Strength
here
of
lately.
schedule, not overall.
No, I know.
Strength of schedule.
They still have the second most quad one wins in the country, though. That's why I think when Rocco came on, I was a little surprised, I'll be honest, when he said that Alabama, with a win tomorrow, could potentially find themselves on the 1 line. But then you go back and remind yourself of what their overall resume is, and it's pretty good.
Well, and here's another problem, and it goes back to what Landrum talked about yesterday. Because the SEC is 500 in league play, we've now only got 12 teams, according to Joe Lenardi. We can't get over that 500 mark.
And we're not going to get 14 because Texas and Oklahoma have to play each other tomorrow.
This is where we need the NFL fix.
Need some.
We need chalk to hold tomorrow. Problem is in the SEC, what is actual chalk with some of these teams?
yeah.
The middle of the league, you flip a coin.
So if you're looking at the South bracket, according to Joe Lenardi, Auburn is number 1. Michigan State would be number 2. Okay. There's only one other team from the SEC that is in the Auburn bracket.
Let me guess who it is.
Which makes sense because if you're the overall number one team, then I would put as few of teams from your league in that bracket to help you out.
Yes.
Because you deserved it. I'm not saying
No,
they're
you earned
trying
it.
to. Absolutely. They earned it. So
who would it be, Vandy?
Georgia.
Georgia.
And Georgia's a 10 seed.
Who's the 8 seed in that bracket or that part of the bracket? Do you have that?
I do. The 8th seed, who Auburn could potentially play, is that what you're asking me?
Correct.
It would either be Kansas or New Mexico.
Okay, those seem like drastically different matchups there.
Maybe if you've seen Kansas play, though.
Yeah, I mean,
name on jersey can be deceiving.
It can be.
Meanwhile, Conrad, you can go ahead and purchase your tickets now if you would like.
To the South Alabama game?
They've got it in Lexington.
It's a bad matchup.
That's not bad.
But that's better than
that's a very
what Rocco
drive.
was talking about yesterday, where they might have to go to Cleveland.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I've
We're
never been there, but
year.
yeah, anything's better than Spokane right now.
That's true.
Probably a little
Nothing
chilly.
against Spokane.
So Bama would be in the East. Duke would be number 1. And the other SEC teams in that bracket
Duke puke.
is Mizzou
Not
as
scared
a
of Duke.
Mizzou's a 5 seed and Vandy a 9 seed.
Oh, okay.
So there's 3 SEC teams in the East bracket. In the West bracket, there's 4 SEC teams.
Okay.
You got Florida as a number 1 seed. Texas Tech is the number 2 in that bracket.
Okay.
Kentucky's a 4, which still kind of, I guess, all those top 15 wins they got, that's why they're being propped up. Ole Miss as a 7. Arkansas is an 11. So that's who's going out west. And in the Midwest, you've got 3 SEC teams. Houston is the number 1 seed. Tennessee, number 2. A&M's a 3, and Mississippi State is an 8.
Okay.
So according to Lenardi, the last 4 byes are Utah State, Georgia, Ohio State, and Arkansas. So there's 2 SEC teams. Last 4 in, San Diego State, Indiana, Boise, Xavier. First 4 out, and here's the problem. You've got Oklahoma and Texas playing each other this weekend, and Lenardi's got both of those teams out as first 4 out.
Where is that game being played? Is it in Austin?
I think it is in Austin.
And that's a game, too, where just based on the order that they are, if Oklahoma wins, probably have a decent shot of getting in the tournament. But if
Correct.
Texas wins, maybe not so much because they're going to have to jump multiple teams.
Most of the Texas media, especially after that loss the other night, I mean, they're like, you can put a fork in them. I mean, now their head coach is on the hot seat.
I was about to say, I saw a hot seat board this morning with Rodney Terry on it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
And his buyout is like $5 million. And for Texas, that's like, that's their lunch bill. You know, for
That's
the
like you
athletic
trying to get
department.
out of a parking deck
That's right.
in your console.
That's right. Absolutely.
So that is interesting. The SEC now down to 12 teams.
That's the number I maintained. I thought the 13 and 14, that was kind of wishful thinking. Last 4 in, though, of all of those teams, and talking to Rocco yesterday, he said that he feels pretty good about IU. How about IU? Mike Woodson, he knows he's gone at the end of the season, and there's a potential that you punch a tournament berth. That would be one of those March Madness stories. Mike Woodson knows that he's gone at the end of the season, and now he's got his team in the Elite Eight. Not that I think that IU would be, but that is kind of what we get, those kind of stories during March Madness every other year.
We had that last year, didn't we? It was like Long Beach or somebody like that, where their coach was going to get fired.
That's a good recall by you.
Oh, that was Monson, who was he was the former Gonzaga head coach, and then he went to Minnesota. And he got fired at Minnesota, and then he ends up on the West Coast, coached Long Beach State forever, and they won their conference tournament. And, after he said that he was going to step down. Let's get this rumor started. Can we do this? Can we get a rumor started?
Does it involve North
Friday?
Carolina?
No.
Oh.
No. It involves
those are
an
my
SEC
favorite.
school. Oh, actually 2 of them.
Oh.
Can we get this going?
Yeah, let's do it.
Oh, the one y'all were telling me about before the show started?
No, that's totally different.
No.
You get that. That's only premium content.
Yes, that's the post-show podcast.
Careful with that one.
It would have been premium content.
No, it would have been. So you're talking about that hot list you saw, right?
The coaching one, yeah.
And Rodney Terry possibly out at Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. What if Del Conte in Texas goes, you know what?
We made a mistake.
We did.
Of course.
Let's make a call. Let's make a call.
No.
And Chris
No
Beard
way.
leaves Ole Miss.
I know where you're going here.
And heads back to Texas
Okay.
as the head coach.
Yep. They welcome him with open arms.
And then Ole Miss is looking for a new head coach. And they go, you know what? We screwed up because the winningest coach in the history of Ole Miss basketball is sitting about 2 hours to the east. How about that for some dominoes?
I'm sure Andy appreciates you bringing that up this morning.
I'm trying to help his agent out.
That'd be interesting.
Which is more likely, Andy to go back to Ole Miss or Chris Beard to Texas?
Texas, they have no morals. They just want to win.
Does Chris Beard want to go back?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, he's taking Ole Miss to the NCAA basketball tournament. Why would you want to go back to Austin and deal with that?
What kind of traction is there? Because I have not been following it the last week. The traction on potentially him going to IU. Is that settled down a little bit?
No. I mean, that's
he's still that top candidate.
Yeah, that's the prevailing rumor.
If I was IU, I would throw everything that I had at Chris Beard.
Don't hold your breath.
Do you have insight? Do you?
No, it was a joke.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. A little slow. You'll have to forgive me and my friend. We're a little slow.
I was proud of that. I'm sure they would love to have him back.
The bus actually went that way. And if you hurry, you can catch them now. You remember that, don't you? That's a great movie.
Because there's no doubt this next week you're going to hear all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. There'll be tons of rumors.
Oh, in the NCAA tournament, you had St. Peter's just a couple of years ago, that run that they had. And basically during the tournament, we knew that half of their roster was not going to be there. They were transferring as the tournament was going on. Their head coach was getting another job as the tournament was going on. Yeah. March Madness. It is madness, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times that the SEC schools have bitten on that theory of someone getting hot and going hiring someone that a school about 3 years later goes, man, why did we do that? The flavor of the week, and it just did not work out for them.
And then you have your Dusty Mays of the world where it's like, oh, I thought that actually worked out very well.
Mm-hmm.
So
we'll see how far Michigan goes, because they've been teetering.
They have been a little bit.
Conrad, tomorrow's IBOB. That's our question today on the 3-man front Twitter poll question of the day.
Yeah, can I make a disclaimer that I did not write this question?
No, you cannot.
Okay. Well, I may or may not have written this question then. So our Pat Ponders question of the day is, how bad will Auburn beat Alabama tomorrow in the second round of the IBOB? Your three options are, it's going to be a blowout, Auburn by double digits, a close win for Auburn, and then your third one is Alabama pulls off the upset of the Tigers. This is the closest poll question we've had in a number of weeks, I feel like. So leading the way is an Auburn blowout with 37% of the vote. Second place with 33% of the vote is Alabama pulls off the upset. And then in third place with 30% of the vote, you have Auburn with a close win. So it's a good.
So 67% of the audience believe Auburn will win the game.
To win the game, yes.
Right.
But that's a good distribution of votes there.
How'd you vote?
People go in different ways. I voted
Auburn blowout?
No, I voted for Alabama to pull off the upset.
Come on. No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Would I put money on Alabama to win the game tomorrow? No, I would not.
But you're predicting on statewide radio that they're going to win.
You're going to take them plus 8.5.
Yeah. I'm going to wear the beanie tomorrow for the first time, so I feel like that's going to bring some.
Don't you think you ought to hold it for the NCAA tournament?
See, and I thought about that, Pat. I really did. I almost wore it for the Florida game. I almost did, and I held off, and now I feel like that was a mistake, so I'm going to wear it tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm not saying if Alabama wins that it's all because of me, but I would like a sliver of credit if they win.
How good do you feel about the game? If 10 would be utmost optimism and 1 would be we shouldn't even show up, where are you?
He's at 1.
5.
Are you at 5?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
I'm
no,
at
you're
5.
not.
Yeah, I am. Am I expecting Alabama to win just based on paper and what we've seen recently? No. But I'm choosing to be optimistic that they are going to be a little more fired up after what happened against Florida. Nate Oates probably chewing them out for the last couple of days.
Wimp Sanderson is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. We will talk to him about the big game down in Auburn. We welcome your interaction as always. The Courtesy GMC text line 205-834-9450, 1-800-239-WJOX. It is a Friday. Molly will be back with us on Monday. Conrad Landrum, I'm Pat with you until 2. This is Three Man Front on Jocks 94.5. Setting our schedule today on Three Man Front, Wimp Sanderson will join us at 10:30. Barrett Slee at 11, talk a little Braves and spring training baseball. Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16, he'll join us at noon. And then Matt Baker from The Athletic, talk a little college football. And we do have a little note that we'll pass along in just a minute. Very interesting that the American Athletic Conference released something this morning that will be very interesting to see how other conferences will take hold of that.
Well, it may start warming up here across the state, but there's still a lot of flu and sickness going around, so make sure that your home is healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. It's 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than those HEPA room filters. Go find a dealer near you today online at Trane.com.
So American Athletic Conference presidents voted today to establish a minimum standard of benefits that schools are now required to share with athletes in the new revenue sharing era. $10 million is going to be required over the next 3 years, becoming the first conference to make such a move. It's called the Minimum Investment Program. Schools that fail to meet the $10 million standard at the conclusion of the 27-28 academic year, they are subject to review, which means their membership in the conference could be up for them being kicked out. Schools can include the additional benefits of up to $2.5 million in new scholarships, direct revenue that they share with athletes, as well as $2.5 million to the Alston payments. That's part of the House settlement. That's a stipend from some schools that have already been distributing to athletes. So, in a nutshell, what that means is that UAB must, over the next 3 years, spend at least $10 million investment back into their student athletes. If not, then their membership in the American Athletic Conference could come up for review.
I'm not asking you to go back through that whole statement that they put out, but how is that defined in putting it back towards student athletes? Is that directly into pocket, or is that
no? Because you can do it through scholarships.
Through scholarships,
$2.5 million of new scholarships.
But this doesn't count if you
facilities
build a new weight room.
Right.
That doesn't count.
Zero.
Okay.
Carving station, anything like that. You're not. I don't know why I was
carving station.
Well, yeah. When a lot of these schools, they started getting their own nutrition centers for
New
their athletic departments. That was the thing that they sold was how many carving stations you had. Did you have a paleo bar?
Okay.
And so what's so interesting,
I guess,
on the Bill Clark podcast, I mean, we've asked him this. I mean, just from an NIL perspective, if you want to be competitive in the American, I mean, he gave us a number of, a good $10 million.
Yeah.
And middle of the road, you're spending probably 4 or 5. That's yearly from an NIL perspective, just to kind of be in the ball game or the conversation, so to speak. So this is interesting that the number that the American Conference has put in is $10 million. It is the minimal that you need to be involved with, at least giving those type of benefits to your athletes.
And I'm guessing this didn't blindside anyone this morning when this came out.
Well, obviously the presidents voted for it.
Yeah.
So I guess it was out there. So if you want to maintain your level in the American Athletic Conference, then, we just wrapped up a series with Bill Clark on the podcast. We spent 3 whole weeks talking about him taking the UAB job, UAB going away in football, UAB coming back in football. And he told us on last night's episode how important Conference USA was. Conference USA said, look, if you're not going to have a football program, you're out. Talking about the whole school. Like UAB was going to have to find its way to play in another league if they did not bring football back. That's how important, football was to CUSA, and CUSA was very important to the fact that UAB was able to come back and try to get them back in the schedules, and the NCAA working with UAB to give them the additional scholarships and things of that nature.
Our friends at Dobbs Ford right there on Parkway East in Birmingham. Dobbs Ford, the Goshen family, the managing partners, they're awesome. Their entire team there at Dobbs Ford is awesome. Alabama's largest showroom selection. You're going to get top dollar for your trade. They'll beat any competitor's price. F-150s, Mustangs, and look good in summertime, right? Warmer weather. Get one of those Mustang convertibles, Broncos Sports. Get the Dobbs Ford Edition, the Black Diamond Edition, Explorers Escapes. There's so many great cars, trucks, SUVs to choose from. Dobbs Ford, they also have a great pre-owned selection, and they have 2 certified mechanics, diesel mechanics on site, and that is a rarity. It's Dobbs Ford Parkway East, DobbsFordBirmingham.com, DobbsFordBirmingham.com. Go see and feel the difference, and tell them Landrum from Jocks 94.5 sent you.
Coming up next on 3-Man Front, Coach Wimp Sanderson, brought to you by Crane Works on this Friday edition of 3-Man Front. I'm going to have some fun here in just a moment. Coach Wim Sanderson is going to join us. Brought to you by Craneworks. Talk a little IBOB. Talk NCAA tournament, SEC tournament next week in Nashville.
Mandu in downtown Homewood. Mandu is electrical muscle stimulation fitness. They want to remind you that Mandu is not a gym. They're actually better. It's the first FDA-approved electrical muscle stimulation training program in the country, and their personalized fitness regimen, small classes, state-of-the-art studios make Mandu the safest and most effective alternative to a crowded gym. You go into Mandu in downtown Homewood. Your first visit is free. They're going to put you in a suit, hook you up to a machine that sends electric pulses to various parts of your body. If you're trying to just go to localized regions like building up your calves, you want to build up maybe your shoulders, your arms, your chest, you can do that. You can also lose weight, or if you just overall want to feel better, build up your endurance, you can do it. Your first visit is free, and they're going to put you through the workout. The key to this is it's a 15-minute workout. Because of that technology that's all FDA approved, 15 minutes is equivalent to 6 to 8 hours in a gym. First visit is free. That's what you need to remember. Mandu in downtown Homewood, MANDUU.com. And when you go in and talk to Paul and the gang, tell them Landrum from Three Man Front sent you.
So just think, 7 days and 27 minutes from right now, you'll have Auburn basketball as the number 1 seed in the SEC basketball tournament. They will be in the quarterfinals. It'll be the first game of the day next week at this time, getting ready to take the court. It'll either be against South Carolina, Mississippi State, or Kentucky. Meanwhile, Alabama, as of this moment, they're the 4 seed. They would be awaiting Texas, Arkansas, and Texas A&M, and they would be playing at 2:30 on Friday afternoon. So it sets up pretty interesting because you would have Auburn the first game of the day, then Bama would follow that game, and then UAB plays on Friday night in Dallas, or I should say in Fort Worth, technically, as the American Athletic Conference tournament gets underway for the Blazers. So it will be a very busy Friday next week as we get ready for championship week, as the tournament's already getting underway in a lot of other secondary conferences, but the big boys will get underway next week. We are always happy each and every week to be joined by Wimp Sanderson, brought to you by Craneworks.
Oh, and the legendary coach that had this scowl on his brow, but a heart filled with love
and joy.
Coach Wimp Sanderson. Coach, how are you?
I'm okay. I had a preacher come to see me yesterday, and he said he's going to preach my funeral. And he said to me, "Is there any certain things you want me to say?" And I said, "Only one thing. What you see in me is not what you get." That's it. Because when you see me, you say he's got a frown on his face. I don't particularly care for the guy. He doesn't smile, which I don't know. And so that was the sentence I gave. I don't know why I'm saying this now. I didn't have cued in to say this, but I said, "The only thing I need for you to say is what you see is not what you get." So I sound like I'm bragging on myself.
No, but you're absolutely right, because I worked with you on an everyday basis early in my career, and I grew up watching you just through my television set and going to watch your games. And I'll be honest with you, Coach, I was scared to death of you. Yeah, but then you get to learn who Wimp really is and your heart, and you're a teddy bear deep down.
I gave it. Before I get into this, Bobby Lee Hurt, who I can't. People like for me to tell stories. I can't tell that one today; it's too long. But I will tell it someday. Bobby Lee Hurt is going into the Huntsville Hall of Fame.
Oh wow!
And I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention.
That's Bobby calling you right now.
He's calling you.
Yeah. I'm getting that booger bear cut down too. I'm sorry. I get all these phone calls about insurance and stuff, and when you tell them your age, they hang up on you. So, they do. Anyway, they do. They hang up on you. So I'm gonna start telling them I'm 48. Basketball-wise, Auburn and Alabama Tennessee, and South Carolina. Now, those games there have an effect, and I don't know what's going to happen if both teams win. Alabama's either going to play Florida in what I call the bottom bracket. It's not bottom, but it's down towards the bottom, or if they're going to play Auburn again. According to what happens, you would think that that it might be Auburn again. Both teams were to win. Alabama's not a favorite at Auburn at all. I think y'all said 8 points or something.
Yeah, 8.5.
And of course, Tennessee is a big favorite against South Carolina. And if they take the game the way they should take it, Tennessee will win that. So anyway, it's going to be Auburn and Florida, both teams, if they win their first game. So it'd be in there one of those two brackets, and it'd be interesting to see what happens. I think basketball. I hear comparisons all the time. Basketball's changed a little bit in that when I did it, if you won the SEC tournament, you were considered the champions of the SEC. And brother, I use that. I use it a lot with our kids. It's not going to be the round robin. You're going to get the ring if you win this tournament. And people like rings. And so, we were able, and it was played on a home court. And we won it at Knoxville. We won it at Nashville, at Vanderbilt. We won it at Lexington. We won it in Atlanta on neutral court. We won it in Orlando, and we won it a lot. And we were ready to play, and the tournament meant a lot to us. You have to be careful. Sometimes the tournament gets where you're going to go to spring break. And if that happens to you, that guy might be wanting to get to Florida with his girlfriend. And that tournament might not mean quite so much to him. But we got it, and we didn't go till the last minute. A lot of times they'll go 2 days in advance, hang right in a motel. And all. We didn't do it. We went and played right crack out of the barrel. And even one time we went, and the day before, I got upset with Robert Ory and suspended him for the cotton picking game. Can you imagine that? How stupid was that? And we opened up with Florida, Lon Kruger. We're not but 15 down at the half. And everybody is mad at everybody, and I'm mad at myself for what I did. I should have gotten over it. I should have just forgotten I suspended him. We came back and won. Went on and beat Auburn in the second game, and played Tennessee in the finals and whacked them pretty good. So that's just old-timey talk about me. I know you want to talk about it now, so we'll see what happens.
All right, so let me ask you this about Alabama. Last year we saw this. Matter of fact, Coach, almost a year to the date, we're having this conversation with you. Alabama, they end up losing their first game in Nashville to Florida. They lose 4 of their last 5 games against SEC opposition. Already this year, right now, they're 2-4 in their last 6 games in SEC play. Are you concerned at all at how this team is trending currently, especially defensively?
I hope it goes the same way, because they got to the Final Four.
True.
So I mean, it's one game at a time, one look at a time. They scored 94 points against Florida and get beat. So that's something that their coaches are concerned about. I'm sure. You scored 94, you're supposed to win by 10, and they didn't. Florida's darn good. Florida had a great game, but my point in saying that's very good. But here, lo and behold, you get to the Final Four. So what you're doing right now is you're playing for your seeding in the SEC tournament, which probably doesn't mean quite as much because 12 teams are going in probably, and you're also playing for your seeding in the NCAA tournament. Auburn is going to be the number 1 in the SEC, and I think number 1 in the NCAA, one of the number ones in the NCAA. Auburn has done a really nice job of getting the right kind of players for their team. In other words, did they get the superstars? Probably not. Bloom turned out to be very, very good. But they got guys that fit in, and they played well together. And you have to study who you're going to get. If you don't believe that, I asked Arkansas 3 years ago when they studied who they were going to get, got their fannies blown out of the tube, and the guy lost his job and went to Southern Cal. So that you have to know who you're going to get. Alabama did too. Alabama got good players, great players. Maybe a little bit more name players when you think about it. If you study it, and I don't study it like I used to, you get maybe more name players than Auburn got. But Auburn got a team that fit very well. Does that make sense?
Yes,
It does very much so.
It absolutely does.
What else?
Coach Wim Sanderson, presented by our friends at Craneworks, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Coach, we talk about the strength of the SEC and how good it has been this year. How much should we buy into that tough schedule and how good the league has been for the success of the SEC teams moving forward when we get to the NCAA tournament?
That's a good question because, you're expecting 4 teams to be in the Final Four from the SEC. And Garth Grisman, who does a really good job for the SEC, has come in there. I don't know. The expectation factor is going to be big. The teams were very, very good. I will say, without throwing any cold water on anybody, is that the ACC was not as good. Certainly not as good. The Big Ten probably not as good. And the other side, the western part of the United States, shambled. Here's Oregon going to the Big Ten, and Southern Cal and UCLA leaving, and Big 12 at the bottom is decent. So maybe the teams around them weren't quite as good, although there's a big stink about whether Oklahoma's getting in or not. They beat Louisville and a couple other pretty good teams, and I don't know if Porter's team is going to get in there or not. So it's kind of interesting to see who they played. The question you ask is very good. Where are those 12 teams, if there is 12? I would say Arkansas, Texas are on the bubble. Arkansas has played better. I think probably I'm just jumping around. I think probably the greatest win this year for me, the shocker, was Arkansas going to Kentucky and winning.
Yes.
I didn't have any idea. Somebody called me before that game and said, "What do you think, Wimp?" I said, "Kentucky beat them 20." And so they didn't call me anymore. So that was a booger bear there to take. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. If somebody gets upset in the NCAA tournament, you're going to, they're going to say what you're thinking they might say. I told you the SEC wasn't that good. That's what's going to happen. And of course, some of them are going to get beat. How many of them will get to the Final Four? The committees do a good job of trying. I think a better job of selecting the seeding. I got bad. Of course, I complained about everything, but I got some 7, 8s and 9 seedings, terrible seedings. I thought, because they still thought that football totally ruled, and we had lucked out a little bit in my career. But we begin to win, they got over that. But they felt like we were just kind of lucky, I guess. But
Coach,
we had good teams, and one reason we had good players. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you a non-tournament question, because I've heard this drumbeat throughout the year about a potential rule change, and I want to get your thoughts on it. There's talk about, or there's some in basketball, they would love for the men's game to go to quarters as opposed to halves. Do you have a feeling one way or another on that potential change?
No, I don't. I guess I should. That's a heck of a question. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether it should or not. I like it. I like it the way it is, personally. Have you heard any goods and bads about that question?
Something about resetting of the fouls.
Yep, resetting the fouls.
They are looking at resetting the fouls and going the way the pros have gone,
right,
somewhat. So that and resetting of the fouls might be good. Not every coach. There's some coaches. Most coaches take their guy out in the first half if they have 2 fouls. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I didn't. It's just according to who it was. And when they get 2 quick fouls on a guy, the official is not quite as prevalent to call that third one real quick. I look at the officials' minds. I try to figure their minds out. You can forget that. but I try to see if that booger bear would call a third one that quick, and sometimes they do, and most of the time they don't. Yeah, but most of the time you go ahead and play. You got to be ready to play. Look, you have to be ready to play against the teams you're supposed to beat and beat them. And then and that's important to you because you get beat by somebody you shouldn't lose to in the NCAA tournament. That's you look at it because those kids look at it, and the SEC tournament as well. And then you got to look out or be as good or make some shots and defend against somebody that's as good or better than you are. And you've got to beat somebody that's as good or better than you are. Or they'd be ranked number one, you wouldn't. So that's big. So. Basketball really, guys, is a tournament game. That's what it really is. It's always been a tournament game. You have kids and all, and they go to the district tournament or the state tournament. I may have already told the story about me having an opportunity to play in the state tournament. I think I told that last time.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to hear that again, that's for sure.
Well, he's the coach, Wimp Sanderson. He is presented to us every week by our friends at Craneworks. And, Coach, the folks at Craneworks, they are not only a mainstay here in the state of Alabama, but throughout the Southeast.
They sure are. David Upton's done a terrific job of Craneworks. Come in, they can put it on top or they can take it off. They got the kind of equipment that'll go in there, the big equipment. I mean, the big equipment that'll go in there and straighten out anything that you need doing as far as building anything. Is for 30 years they've been doing it. They've got trained operators to be darn sure it's done correctly. If they've got a smaller project and you think you can do it, then you can go to RentalWorks, and RentalWorks will also they'll bring a operator too along with it, and RentalWorks will help you handle the problem. And I went out one time and looked at all this stuff that you could rent. I couldn't rent it because I couldn't turn on a light. I couldn't do anything. So, but most everybody could. So anyway. Those two products and Wasteworks are great. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's going to be a very, very interesting. At least you're not playing on anybody's home court. You're playing in the tournament where everybody has the same shot.
Yep.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
We appreciate it.
Right.
We'll talk to you next Friday. Coach Wimp Sanderson, presented by Craneworks. All of our guests join us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
So, if you're a homeowner and these fluctuations of temperatures, one morning it's still below freezing, then it gets up in the 70s. All of a sudden you start noticing cracks around your home and your doors and windows. It just won't close right. That means that your foundation is shifting. You might have a bigger problem. That's why you need to call APS today, 205-951-9717. It'll be the best decision you've made to protect your home. APS, they can send a team out to your home. They really know their stuff. They'll inspect everything, explain the problem clearly, and they're going to offer you solutions that's tailored to your home. No pressure, just honest advice. They can fix your foundation, tackle that sinking driveway. They use the poly-level systems. Incredible. It's quick, clean, and it looks fantastic. Plus, they can fix any cracks in your patio as you're getting ready for that important barbecue season. Call them today, 205-951-9717. or alabamaprofessional.com.
Auburn coach Bruce Pearl with an interesting message to his fan base. You'll hear what it is next on Three Man Front. Great visit with Coach Wimp Sanderson presented by Craneworks. Any portion of that, we encourage you to do so. Go and find it there at 3-Man Front in the podcast at JocksFM.com. 8.5, that is the spread inside of Neville Arena when it tips off tomorrow. You can hear the game right here on Jocks 94.5. IBOB Part 2. Bruce Pearl, Auburn head coach, with a message for his fan base.
Auburn family, Auburn students, and everybody that makes Neville Arena the jungle that it is. How about them Auburn Tigers? We're so blessed to have won our 5th championship in the last 8 years, and we absolutely couldn't do without you. But one of the things I want you to know I'm so very proud of is while we've created the most intense home court advantage in all of college basketball, we've done it the right way. My point, sometimes when our basketball team goes on the road, the opponent's crowd will be, not only cheering for them, but actually using bad language and saying things and cheers that kids in the stands should not hear, and that people at home that are watching, we don't want them to witness. So my message is let's finish this thing up the right way. You guys have done it with unbelievable intensity, with so much fun, with so much passion, and so much joy. But let's be mindful of our language. Let's be mindful of continuing to be great Auburn men and women. And let's keep calling up the Lord and giving him all the glory. War Eagle.
Yeah, Conrad, if you would like to respond, I think that Coach Pearl was talking directly to you in that filthy mouth.
I think that was a very nice sentiment from him.
It was.
What fan base do you think he was talking about?
Texas A&M.
His own fan base, Pat.
No, he said when they go on the road, he hears things.
Oh, surely not Alabama. We would. Very classy institution.
Isn't it in your fight song?
No, that's tame. That's tame. If you want to get mad about the Dixieland Delight thing, I can understand that. But if you're going to get mad about Rammer Jammer,
I don't think he was talking about either one of those.
who do you think he was talking about?
I think it did have something to do with some of the chants that he heard in Coleman Coliseum. But I think he's reminding his fan base that
He must have misheard that stuff.
let's not. Yeah, what was it? What were they actually chanting? Let's go, Brandon.
Go Alabama.
Welcome back. It's hour number 2, three-man front. Pat Landrum, Conrad. Molly will be back with us on Monday. We've already heard from Wimp Sanderson. We're going to get a little spring training baseball talk with Barrett Sallee from the Atlanta Braves Radio Network coming up momentarily. Basketball, the IBOB tomorrow. Don't forget, you can hear all the coverage right here on Jocks 94.5.
Speaking of spring, that means insects, unfortunately, stinging insects, biting insects, and insects that can actually destroy your home. Our friends at Stark Exterminators want to remind you, if you're not currently a Stark customer, you can take them up on the offer of a free home or business pest inspection this spring. They'll have a great team member like he did coming to my house. Either he or she will come to your house or place of business, inspect it thoroughly inside and out, and come up with a customized plan for you. Stark Exterminator has been family-owned for over 61 years. That means something to someone like me and a lot of you, I'm sure. Stark Exterminators, 855-STARK now, or go to starkexterminators.com. Once again, call for your free home or business pest inspection today, and remind you that termite damage nearly $5 billion with a B every single year. And the startling fact is most homeowners insurance does not cover it. Stark Exterminators, 855-STARK now, or go to starkexterminators.com. And when you do, make sure you tell them Landrum from Jocks 94.5 sent you.
So it came out last night. Brett McMurphy, he was the first to report it. Then Auburn Undercover, they confirmed it, that Auburn's 2025 season opener at Baylor has been moved up a day to Friday, August the 29th. Do you realize that Auburn has not played a regular season game on a day other than Saturday since playing Kentucky on Thursday in 2015? It's been almost 10 years.
I thought you were going to say the 2013 national championship when they played on Monday.
I actually thought that you were going to say Auburn at Kansas State in Manhattan on that Thursday night.
Nope, Kentucky
And they
on
had
a
Duke
Thursday.
Williams and some of those other cats on that team. I can't remember the year, but Friday night game, August 29th.
Friday night
At
game.
least we're not going to be busy.
Yeah. And this just came out just literally seconds ago. Georgia Tech has announced that their opening season game against Colorado is going to be also played on Friday night. Or they're going to be played on Friday night.
If I'm Georgia Tech, I'm asking, can I go back to Dublin? Open up my season.
Started off well for them last year.
So Coach Key will take on Coach Prime on that Friday night, and so will Coach Freeze take on Coach Aranda on Friday night as the college football schedule starts leaking out.
A guy who witnessed Georgia Tech winning in Dublin to open up the college football season over Florida State last year, Barrett Sallee. He is now the pre- and post-game host of the Braves Radio Network. Barrett, how are you? Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Yeah, it's starting out in Dublin is something that everybody should do at least once. I know they have Kansas State, Iowa State, another conference game this coming season. It's worth the trip, man. It is awesome.
Well, I mean, I remember us having to try to pry you out of a bar, a pub.
Well,
Come
he
to the
got
interview.
lost as he was talking to us. He ended up on
I got
a
lost
sketchy
walking
street.
around town.
Then we
I
were
had
worried.
no idea where I was going.
We were worried that Barrett was going to wake up in a bathtub full of ice, missing an organ. But I don't guess they do that over there.
I don't think. Yeah, they're too nice over there. But it would not have surprised me. And I can go ahead and tell you now, since I don't cover football anymore, that getting lost in Dublin, there were a couple of Guinnesses that caused that. And by a couple, I mean quite a few, as in 4 or 5.
As an American overseas, did you feel safe?
In Ireland, yeah, those people are way too nice to everybody. I think they are the nicest people I've ever met. So, yeah, I felt safe for sure. I never went to bad parts of Dublin. I've heard there's like one area of town that is not as safe, but I never saw it. They were the nicest people I've ever met. Present company excluded, of course.
Okay, good. Well, you need to qualify what you said. You said in Dublin you felt safe, or in Ireland you felt safe.
Yes.
As an American overseas, you did some travel baseball. You did some things, I believe, in the Orient, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Where did you not feel safe? I'm curious.
When I was in China playing as a 14-year-old baseball player, I did not feel safe when the fans of a couple of the Chinese teams were throwing C and D batteries at me at first base.
So you felt like you were in Philadelphia.
That was not good.
You felt like you were in Philadelphia.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Luckily, there was a lot of fair territory or foul territory, so that not many of them could actually reach me. But yeah, batteries were thrown at me, and I didn't do anything. I was very, very polite. I will say that a couple of teammates did get into it with a couple of their players, so I think I might have taken the brunt of it. But yeah, that actually happened back in 1994.
That patch on your jersey, I'm guessing you guys had the American flag on your jersey. Don't worry about it, Barrett.
We did.
That naturally brings hatred from others who wish that they had it. So
yes, that is true.
C&D batteries. That's wild.
Yep.
Okay.
Not double A's.
Update us.
They were going for the pain.
Update us on spring training baseball. I saw where we tied the Marlins yesterday. Ian Anderson, I know the Braves are hopeful that he's going to be in that starting rotation this year, but 3 1/3 innings of work. He did surrender 4 walks, but he had some strikeouts. First, let's start with Ian Anderson and being a member of that starting rotation, hopefully.
Yeah, he's going to be for sure. I know there's this idea that, okay, maybe it's Ian Anderson, Grant Holmes, A.J. Smith-Shawver, and Bryce Elder fighting for those 2 spots that come north before Strider comes back. Ian Anderson doesn't have any options left. So he's good enough, and I think he's shown this spring that he's good enough to be on a major league roster, good enough to be on the Braves roster, especially considering he's still sort of coming back from injury, even though he did play a little bit last year at the end of the season. So because he doesn't have any options left and he looks okay, he looks fine, he's going to be up with the big club. I think it's going to be interesting what happens with Smith-Shawver, Grant Holmes, and Bryce Elder. And really Smith-Shawver, because I'm off the Bryce Elder train, and I think they're frustrated with him a little bit too. But if they need help in the bullpen, I think they're open to moving Grant Holmes to the bullpen. He did that last year. Yeah, he started last year too, and it was great. But if Smith-Shawver looks like a better option, or it looks like Grant Holmes might be needed in the bullpen, that's an option too. Really hope the Bryce Elder thing doesn't happen. I think the only way it does is if there is a concern elsewhere, because he looks like he's been the stats don't really show it, but he looks like he's fishing a little bit, and that's what got him in trouble after the All-Star game 2 years ago.
I know you're currently not like outside the stadium in Florida, but I am curious, the people that you talk to are around the Grapefruit League. What other storylines are garnering your attention in regards to what's going on in Florida?
I'm fascinated with the Rays situation because they're playing at Steinbrenner Field this season. They're not playing there in spring. Obviously, the Yankees are. I'm just fascinated to see how they are received when the season starts. Because that to me is going to determine so much in Major League Baseball all over the place. If they do get some momentum and there's they have a little bit of a rejuvenation, do they stay there? Do they build a stadium? Do they fix Tropicana Field to a point where they can play again? Do they move to Nashville? Do they that is the fact that they are playing at Steinbrenner Field as visitors, and they're going to move dugouts and play at home for the season. I'm so fascinated by that entire thing. And Juan Soto, look, the number, I get it. That dude can't play defense. I don't know if you guys watched yesterday. Granted, it was a line drive, but he spun around twice, and they paid all that money to Juan Soto, and he's always been a below average defensive player. And that doesn't look like it's changed. So I'm just watching that yesterday further sort of solidified in my mind that this Mets thing, I know they spent over $1 billion in the offseason. They don't scare me all that much, honestly. After the top 5 in that order, Soto's going to be a liability, and they don't have a lot of firepower.
I like what I'm hearing from you on the Mets. That sounds really good. Barrett Sallee, Braves pre- and post-game show, the Braves Radio Network. You can hear them all season long with Atlanta Braves action here on Jocks and the Jocks Network of stations. Barrett, give us some fodder for our Braves fans. What are some of the bigger takeaways, welcome surprises that we have witnessed in spring training so far?
The Kelnick experiment. Like, this is his last shot, right? He's faced pressure in a variety of different ways. As a top shot prospect, as a guy who was supposed to save a franchise in Seattle, as a guy who was supposed to be better than average in Atlanta, and now as a guy who's kind of fighting for his major league life. Yeah, he can go somewhere else like the A's or whatever, but if he's going to be a contributor on a contending team, this is his last shot. And remember this time last year, we were talking about him not just having a bad spring, but a flat out horrendous spring to the point where they had to go get Adam Duvall just as some sort of insurance policy. That hasn't happened. He's been pretty good this year. I think there's the pressure for him to only be good for a month certainly helps, because he was pretty good for the first half of last season. And I say pretty good by, Kelnick standards. But the fact that he's been okay, he hasn't looked like a liability is very, very entertaining to me, or very, very good to see. I think the battle for the utility player has been just, it's so bizarre to see Eli White playing shortstop, but it's clear that they're not comfortable there. He hit home run yesterday, and he played 3 innings at shortstop, I think it was yesterday. RC has got to have somebody. They got to have a Whit Merrifield, essentially, right? Somewhere they can move around. And because of that, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Nick Allen makes the team, because Nick Allen has played everywhere in the infield. You can put him in the outfield. You can put him anywhere. You can put him at first base if, for whatever reason, Matt Olson has to skip a game, because he hasn't done that in 3 years, but you never know. I'm fascinated to see what happens, because they clearly are concerned to a point where they're putting Eli White at shortstop, a place where he hasn't played since 2019.
All right, so let me ask you about the catching situation. So Sean Murphy, frustrating season last year for the Braves, injury prone, did not have the kind of numbers he had the season before. Maybe it was because of all those injuries. He gets banged up now in spring training. What are you looking, 4-6 weeks before he gets back in the
4 to 6 weeks,
yeah, behind the plate. So what's the catching situation look like, and what's expectation of Murphy in 2025?
The expectation for me is to be awful. You look at the last 119 games that he played with the Braves. He's like below 200 in the average department, below 400 in OPS. The only good thing is that he hit 16 home runs during that span, but I mean, he's been awful. So I'm not expecting much from him. With that said, they can't do the Sean Murphy, Travis d'Arnaud thing where, you get 3 games and you get 2 games. Right? You can't do that, because Chadwick Tromp, who I think is sort of right now the leader in the clubhouse to be that number 2 catcher, he's just not that good. So Drake Baldwin is the hotshot prospect. They're not going to bring him up unless he's going to be a number 1. He can't sit there and get 1 game every 5 games. Like, that's just not, it's not going to help him. He needs to be an everyday catcher, or at least a guy who's getting 2 starts out of every 5, which is what they kind of have done lately. Because of that, I think he's going to be the guy. Like Sandy Leone, he's okay. Kirk Casale, he's okay. Both those guys are veterans, but Drake got a vote of confidence from Chris Sale. His defense has been really, really solid. That's been a concern, previously. His bat's never been a concern. I think in an ideal world, they want to call Drake Baldwin up and make him a starter until Sean Murphy comes back. Give Chadwick Tromp, some starts as well. But they're very close to just pulling the plug on the Sean Murphy experiment, even though he's owed a lot of money. It's just it's hard to trust him at this point. And the health thing, look, the oblique last year is an oblique. Okay, maybe he's injury prone in that regard. The dude got hit in the back, broke his ribs. It's not his fault, right? So the injury prone thing is not a concern for me. The ineffectiveness is. So if they give Drake the majority of the games over the first month of the season, Sean might lose his job because the confidence is not there anymore.
Wow. Barrett, I did want to ask you about Tim Hires, the new hitting coach for the Braves. He replaced Kevin Seitzer. What can you tell us about Tim Hires? I don't know how much you can gather during spring training.
He teaches patience a lot, which I think for this team They kind of got away from that a little bit last year. They still got the walks, but they were antsy. RCO was swinging out of his shoes just because they felt like they had to do something. So he does preach patience, uses a lot of technology, but doesn't press that on people, right? Like, they have those iPads on tripods by the batting cage. The player will go over and talk to Tim Hires, and basically he'll feel that player out and see, okay, what does he need to know? What does he don't need to know? Things like that. So he's definitely a newer age hitting coach as opposed to Kevin Seitzer. Yeah, he's still a little old. He's 43. We're old, compared to some of these guys out there. But I think they like how he operates, and I think right now the big thing is just getting him comfortable with the information that certain players want to see. And really, he had no idea of how to do that. He's just got to go through spring training. And so far, I think they're comfortable. They're happy with where he is.
Well, the Braves get the Twins today in spring training action. You got the Pirates coming up this weekend, also the Red Sox on Sunday. So spring training continues. Barrett, we appreciate you joining us, taking time out of your busy spring training schedule, and we look forward to talking to you next week. We'll have a little bit of SEC tournament talk and get closer to the NCAA tournament, but we appreciate you keeping us apprised of everything going on there in spring training, not only with the Braves, but across Major League Baseball.
Thanks, y'all. See you.
See you. Barrett Sallee. At Barrett Sallee, there on Twitter, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Well, this is your reminder to get up to Hanceville tomorrow morning because Wallace State is holding a ribbon-cutting ceremony tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. to celebrate the new synthetic turf at Pete Harris Softball Field. Up there in Hanceville, festivities are going to include a cookout and free game admission with a special invitation to all former Lions players, as well as alumni, family, friends, and the public. Again, that's tomorrow morning at 11:30 up there at Pete Harris Softball Field, McCracken Stadium at Wallace State, Hanceville.
We continue on this Friday edition of Three Man Front. Coming up at the top of the hour, Blake Lovell from Southeastern 16, Matt Baker as well next hour as we'll talk about the ACC settlement with Clemson and Florida State. This is Three Man Front on Jocks 94.5. 11:21, Jocks 94.5, basketball, March Madness in the air. You can hear Auburn, Alabama tomorrow right here on Jocks 94.5. Man, I just sitting here looking at some stories coming across the wire, and I'm kind of emotional about this next story I'm going to tell you about.
Oh, man.
LSU gymnastics senior night is going to be without superstar Livy Dunn. Did you hear about this?
Crap. No, security team gets a night off.
Yep, she has fractured her patella.
Oh, that actually sounds incredibly painful.
She will not be competing in the event, so she will not be a part of senior night. That is some bad news. She updated everyone of her medical condition on her Instagram stories, because I know you follow her on Instagram, Conrad.
Of course I do. Okay.
So she's got a fractured kneecap. Yeah, that'll keep her off the floor for a while.
So when she travels with Skeens around the country during the season to like the Pittsburgh Pirates, does she have an open invite for their training staff?
Do we know how this happened?
They can help her out.
Was she taking BP? And she said, all right, bring the heat. And he plunked her in the kneecap with a fastball.
I'm going to stay out of this one.
Yeah, I am too, because,
there's one very easy route we could go there.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
You've got options.
Speaking of her love interest, so I went ahead and signed on in because I was interested on potentially bidding for this baseball card.
They're still together, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
They're America's power couple, Andrew. They can't break up.
No, I think Travis and Taylor would have something to say about that.
We're over them.
So the 2024 Topps Chrome updated Paul Skeens, the MLB debut patch auto DNA card.
Oh, yeah. This is the one that's worth like over $1 million.
This is the one I've been looking for.
So right now I can bid on it. I'm on the bid page right now. And I'm curious if you guys would go in with me.
How much time is left in the auction?
How are we
Does
going to
it
share
tell
the
you?
card?
There's been
every other weekend for you, Landrum.
There's been 52 bids.
Okay.
And the last bid just came in. So I'm just curious if I can count on you guys if we just
What kind of money are we talking? Are we talking flaming hot Cheeto that looks like
I just need to know
Pokemon?
if you guys are committed.
Sure.
3 ways. Are you in, Conrad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm in.
Okay.
I have a general idea of what this number is going to be, and it's going to be shocking.
It's probably not going to be as much as you think.
Okay.
But you are probably going to have to move some things around from your diversified account, possibly.
We'll see about that.
Okay. The latest bid on this Paul Skeens 2024 Topps Chrome updated patch auto DNA card is $360,000.
Oh, yeah. That's not as bad as I thought.
Y'all guys still in?
I'll go $100.
You'll go $100K? Well, we're going to be a little short then.
I said I'd go in. I didn't say equal. $360,000?
$360,000.
Okay, so this is the same card I was thinking of. That it was like a 10-year-old kid that opened up a
11-year-old.
pack of cards
Oh,
and
yeah.
he got this one, and now his parents are putting it up for auction.
Is that the one that they offered to give season tickets to?
Yes.
Yes,
The Pirates did?
Yeah, smart decision to turn that.
And he's a
one down.
Dodgers fan?
Yeah, well, yeah, they don't even live in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So it would be impossible for them to go to the game.
So it's interesting because on the Fanatics Collect site, I've never been there before. And so I started looking around. Not only that, but there's other things that you can make bids on. The 1998 Skybox Premium Star Kobe Bryant card, $21,500.
Okay. I assume these are all autographed.
This Kobe, yes, it
Okay,
is.
I was about
yes.
to say, surely.
The 2008 Michael Jordan signed card, $16,500. That's affordable.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can get that one, right?
Is this all basketball, or is there some football and baseball in here there too?
Oh, there's Pokemon. There's all sorts of stuff in here.
Let me know if you come across a Tua rookie card.
1952 Topps Willie Mays,
Bet that expensive.
$9,000.
Really?
Mm-hmm. 1986 Fleer Basketball Michael Jordan rookie card, $9,000. I was thinking these might be a little bit more expensive.
I was about to say, we're not getting to the Onus Wagner trading card arena here with
Or the 52
millions of
tops
millions.
Mickey Mantle.
What's that going for?
It sold in 2022 for $12.6 million.
Wait, 12.6 million?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, that list is number one.
Yeah.
And this came out, I guess this came out last month, but Honus Wagner comes in at number 2. And at one time when it was sold, it was $7.25 million.
Okay. See, I thought that was the most expensive one. I didn't know there was another one. I had that.
I don't mean any disrespect about Paul Skeens because I think if he stays healthy, he's got incredible talent.
He could be an all-timer.
He's unbelievable. But I'm sitting here looking at a Tom Brady rookie card in 2000. It's been autographed by Tom Brady. It's in mint condition, and you can get it for $8,500. But meanwhile, Paul Skeens is going for $360,000. Are you kidding me?
That's wild.
The 2017 Panini National Treasures Patrick Mahomes second rookie patch, $4.3 million.
And I guess that's because it came from an actual jersey of Patrick Mahomes.
I was about to say, and I guess that's where a lot of these cards go crazy because that's what the Skeens card is, right?
Yes.
It has the jersey thing on it too.
Has a swatch of his jersey.
See, because I remember I had like an Alex Rodriguez thing that came with like a piece of a Rangers jersey on it, and I always thought that was very cool. I guess it's probably not worth $300,000 though. That'd be nice. Sell it. That's crazy though.
I guess we'll come up a little short on
Well,
that.
I'll never know
360.
what it's like to have that kind of money at my disposal where I can just go and I kind of like him. Yeah, they're a cute couple. Let me pay $360,000 for a card or a patch or.
Well, and it's just wild. I mean, I do not want this to happen at all. Love Paul Skeens, watching him play. He's incredible. But, I mean, what happens if the guy gets hurt and, his career doesn't go the way you thought it is and you just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this rookie card that's now going to be worth $1,000 and you paid $300,000? Like, that's just such a big risk as opposed to
But not
a player
if,
in the past that their legacy is going to stay what it is.
Not if you're drawing $5 million interest off your money every single day.
No, you don't care at that point.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll write up that as I don't even know.
Now, this is not
Some
autographed.
cabinet.
I was thinking about getting this for you for Christmas, but I'm going to be a little short here. Maybe Landrum can jump in on this, but this is a...
Are these Tyvek booties for the shower?
No. This is a 1993 Derek Jeter rookie card, mint condition, not signed.
But it does have
Just the card.
Madonna's
card.
lipstick on it.
Ooh.
$95,000.
And it's not autographed?
It is not.
Does it have the jersey patch on it or anything?
Doesn't look like it.
Now, are we talking now in your ballpark a little bit?
Yeah, now we're 95,000 I can do. The 300,000 I was gonna have to move some stuff around. That's
Mm-hmm.
and it's not autographed. I just don't understand the inner workings of how, because that just doesn't make any sense to me.
20
Just like the Tom Brady thing.
Okay, and I
26
apologize
bids.
to Derek Jeter. He was never linked or dated Madonna.
That was
Apparently
Alex
just
Rodriguez.
A-Rod.
That was Alex Rodriguez.
That was also Charles Barkley.
He dated Madonna?
He did.
I did not know that. Yeah, Derek Jeter was, I think he dated Scarlett Johansson, Jessica Biel. He's married to a Victoria's Secret model. He has a good track record.
This is the Friday edition of Three Man Front. We will open up the text line at 205-834-9450, brought to you by Courtesy
Wow.
GMC, 1-800-239-WJOX. We're back on three-man front. Jocks 94.5, great radio stations. Huntsville, the ump, down in Montgomery, Alabama, the capital city. Jocks 740. Bruce Pearl is meeting with the media as we speak, and he was asked about Denver Jones's status for tomorrow's game. He said he moved around yesterday. My anticipation is that he'll be able to go through practice today. We'll see after practice how he responds. He also mentioned the fact that Janai Broom got a stinger against Texas A&M the other night, but he feels like he is good to go. So we'll get more information as it becomes available throughout the afternoon as Auburn has another walkthrough practice before Alabama.
Well, unfortunately, we still have a lot of flu and sickness going around, so make your home healthier with Trane's Clean Effects Home Air Cleaner. It removes up to 99.9% of airborne particles, including those that cause virus. It's also 100 times more effective than standard air filters and 8 times more effective than HEPA room filters. To find a dealer near you, just go online today at Trane.com.
So I know this list is subjective, but I want to get your opinion on what you think. So the Tennessean in Nashville, they have come out with a list. Who has, in regards to the Southeastern Conference, who has the best football and basketball combination? Which school has it? Off the top of your head, who would you put at number one on your list?
And these are programs, not coaches. We're talking about like the best
football and basketball coaching combinations at the schools.
All right.
Obviously, men's basketball and football.
I would put Nate Oates and Kalen DeBoer.
Would you have them number one on your list?
Let me think about it a little bit more. Conrad, you got one you throw out?
Alabama was the first one that came to my mind. Tennessee would be very high up there as well. Texas A&M. But yeah, Alabama and Tennessee are the first two.
This basketball season's kind of changed the way you kind of look at things, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, according to the Tennessean, coming in at number 16 was Jeff Lebby and Chris Jans at Mississippi State.
Okay.
That was dead last.
Yeah, well, Jeff Lebby, unfortunately, is TBD on him, but he's going to bring you down a little bit right now.
At number 15, according to the Tennessean, is Clark Lee and Mark Byington at Vanderbilt.
Would have had them higher than 15.
At 14, Shane Beamer and Lamont Paris.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
Poor Lamont.
Coming in at 13, Brent Venables and Porter Moser.
Okay. Yeah.
So far, have you heard anything that has just screamed out like you do not agree with what they're trending towards?
This is a hot take probably, but if we're just looking at right now, this season, the last 12 months, I would probably flip-flop Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah. How much and they probably don't give you this, but how much they're waiting? Because I'm already thinking about potentially Kirby Smart and Mike White, the basketball coach.
Yes. How much credit do you give Kirby, and does he? Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just read you I'll just give you an example. I'll tell you what they said about Shane Beamer and Lamont Paris. So maybe we'll get an idea. Beamer's breakout season in 2024 was tempered somewhat with an ugly bowl loss to Illinois, a loss that highlighted this reality. South Carolina's best wins were against Texas A&M and Clemson. Paris followed last year's breakout season with a dud. This year, the Gamecocks are headed for 20 losses in 2 of his 3 seasons.
Okay.
If that gives you any kind of. All right. So far they've got Mississippi State at 16, Clark Lee at 15, Vandy at 15, South Carolina at 14. We're talking about combinations of football and basketball. Brent Venables and Porter Moser come in at 13. At number 12, Sam Pittman and John Calipari.
I can't really argue against that.
Calipari's legendary career lifts the Razorbacks higher in this year's list.
Wow. Okay. So they're going to be even lower.
Coming in at number 11, Mark Stoops and Mark Pope at Kentucky.
That was the one I was interested to see where they would have them. Okay. I'm fine with that.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Now we're getting into the top 10, according to the Tennessean. Best combination of football coaches and men's basketball coach. Billy Napier and Todd Golden.
So they're number 10?
Number 10.
I might have them a little higher, but okay.
Number 9, Brian Kelly and Mac McMahon, LSU.
I don't have an issue with that.
Sure.
At number 8, Eli Drinkwitz and Dennis Gates.
That's a tough one. Okay.
At number 7, Steve Sarkisian and Rodney Terry.
Yeah, Rodney brought you down there, Sark.
Yeah.
Sark's like, man, thanks, Rodney.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Chris Beard was still
I was
here.
about to say I miss Chris.
Be top 3.
All right, so we're climbing towards the top 5. We're now at number 6. Mike Elko and Buzz Williams.
Okay.
Okay. Solid.
All right, so now before we get into the top 5, would you guys like to
Guess the order?
yeah, or just kind of arrange them a little bit of how
Yeah,
you would?
I think that Lane Kiffin and Chris Beard at Ole Miss will come in at number 4.
Okay.
I'm going to guess Auburn's number 5 just because of Hugh Freeze the last couple of years.
So he would bring down Bruce
I
Pearl.
don't know if you.
Would you have them over Ole Miss, though? If you have Ole Miss at 4.
And if you're just now tuning in, what we're doing is we're reading off a list from the Tennessean detailing the rankings of the Southeastern Conference combination of football coaches and men's basketball
No,
coaches.
Chris Beard has been to a Final Four, same year that Bruce Pearl went. Lane Kiffin has made as many playoff appearances and championship game SEC appearances as Hugh Freeze, which would be 0. But I think that Pearl, based on this year Auburn's success, he would get the nod. Auburn would get the nod over Ole Miss in that combo. So I would go Auburn. I think that they'll be number 3 or number 2 on this list.
Okay. Okay. See, I'm going to stick with, I think you're going to have Auburn at 5, Georgia at 4, Ole Miss at 3, and then the top 2 will be Tennessee and Alabama.
Okay. And are you still saying you think it'll be Alabama? One of the top ones?
Yeah,
1 or 2?
I think Alabama will be 1 or 2.
Okay. Coming in at number 5, Lane Kiffin and Chris Beard at Ole Miss.
Okay.
Coming in at number 4, Josh Heupel and Rick Barnes.
Heupel and Barnes, that is one that I was not thinking about, but that's good.
Says Barnes' resume is legendary, one of the greatest coaches of his era. The only thing he lacks is a national championship. And the Vols have the talent this season to reach the Final Four. Heupel got Tennessee into the college football playoff and has won 30 games in his last 3 seasons. So they've got Tennessee at number 4.
So it's going to be Georgia, Auburn, Alabama. 3, 2, 1.
What did you say?
I said Georgia 3, Auburn 2, Alabama 1.
Okay.
I would agree with that. They seem to be weighting one team that has an excellent coach and somebody else that's maybe average and giving them a boost because, I'm sorry, I just find it hard to believe that you don't think Lane Kiffin and Chris Beard as a combination is better than what you're getting at the other schools. They're clearly giving preference to.
So you believe Lane Kiffin and Chris Beard is better than Bruce Pearl and Hugh Freeze?
Yes, and I also think that's better than Kirby Smart and Mike White as a combination.
Okay. According to the Tennessean, coming in at number 3, Hugh Freeze and Bruce Pearl.
Okay.
Freeze's 2-year struggles on the Plains is the only thing that keeps the Tigers from pressing blank for the top spot. It's hard to ignore Freeze's success at Ole Miss and Liberty. Pearl is at the top of his sport, both as a coach and recruiter and a program builder. Auburn was a basketball wasteland before he arrived.
All true.
I was about to say, if Auburn goes and wins 9 games this year, I'd have no problem putting them in the top spot.
So there's 2 programs remaining. In an alphabetical order, it's Alabama and Georgia are the 2 remaining.
It's got to be Alabama 1, Georgia 2.
Yeah, Alabama 1. You can't put Georgia number 1.
Georgia's number 2.
Yeah.
Says the difference between Oates and White is the only reason Georgia isn't at the top of the list. But let's not forget that White took Florida to 4 NCAA tournaments in 7 seasons. And then obviously Alabama comes in, according to the Tennessee, the best combination of their men's basketball and the head football coach. It says, don't judge DeBoer on his first season, replacing the greatest coach in the game. Every coach in college football would fail in year 1 following Nick Saban. Oates has quickly become one of the top 10 coaches in college basketball and the SEC's best recruiter. And that's coming from the Tennessean. This is not written by somebody in downtown Birmingham.
Yeah, I think that's solid. Again, my problem with that list would just be you didn't even stick to the topic that you were making the list about in terms of combinations because, again, nothing against Mike White, but I mean, I would look at Lane Kiffin as probably a top 10-ish coach in college football, and I think a lot of people would have Chris Beard as a top 10 to 12 coach in college basketball as well.
So who got the most disrespect from this list?
Well, Conrad obviously thinks it was Lane Kiffin and Chris Beard.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably go Ole Miss.
I would probably go. I think Sam Pittman and Coach Cal coming in at 12. I think that they should be higher.
Yeah, and I think Vanderbilt should be higher.
Yeah, I agree with Vandy.
You don't agree with with Arkansas? Pitt's won. Cal's won a national championship.
I just don't think Pittman's done anything that would jump up Arkansas any higher.
But we
than
love
12.
Sam Pittman so much, like it kind of jades your view of it sometimes because he's such a likable
But
guy.
I give you those two guys, but then we're going to take Eli Drinkwitz and Dennis Gates, and we know how dreadful Missouri was last year in basketball. But what has Drink really done?
2 10-win seasons.
Okay, so who do you think is a better coach right now, Drink or Beamer?
That's really close.
Because I think on the basketball side, like you brought up, Landrum, you're kind of like, all right, South Carolina was good last year. Now they're having a disaster season. Missouri had a disaster season last year. Now they're good this year.
If I was an AD and I had to hire both coaches at the same time,
yes,
in a dual contract, I'm going Drink and Gates.
Okay.
The problem I have with this is that you take a coach that's won a national title in Kirby Smart, and he's won a couple of them, and you pair that with Mike White, and we know where Georgia basketball has been. And even when Mike White was at Florida, things were not to the Billy Donovan level, obviously. But we're going to do that. Cal's won a national championship. He's been to Final Fours. And I realize he was at Kentucky. But what Sam Pittman's done, I just think 12 out of 16 combinations, that should be higher. Because if you're gonna award Kirby Smart for the 2 national championships.
No, I think that's
and you
fair.
know that how I feel about Cal. I mean, I don't think that Cal's the greatest coach that ever walked the earth, but
I was about to say, if I'm not mistaken, there's 2 coaches on that list with titles, and it's Kirby and Cal, and that's it. So
let us hear from you. The Courtesy GMC text line is open. If you agreed with that list,
who would the best Big Ten combination be right now? Because you could have gone at one time. You could have said Eric Musselman and Lincoln Riley was very good. Ryan Day and whatever coach that they choose to be coaching their team that year at Ohio State. Michigan, Juwan Howard and Jim Harbaugh at one time. That would have been cool. Tom Izzo at Michigan State. You're going to get a lot of points there. Now, Jonathan Smith, he's still early in that. I think that I would probably have to go with Oregon. Dana Altman and Dan Lanning.
yeah, I would agree with that.
Because Penn State, you're not going to.
You wouldn't go Musselman and Lincoln Riley?
I don't think so.
Let us hear from you, 1-800-239-WJOX. Blake Lovell will join us at the top of the hour to set the stage for this weekend's final regular season weekend of SEC basketball. This is 3-Man Front on Jocks 94.5. Earlier this week, there was some prevailing winds of rumors involving both Andy Kennedy and Bucky McMillan possibly being names of interest for the Florida State opening. Well, warchant.com is reporting at this hour that former Florida State point guard and Sacramento Kings assistant coach Luke Lux is the man that is on top of the list right now. He played point guard for the Seminoles from 2008 to 2012. He played a key role on 4 consecutive NCAA tournament teams in Tallahassee. So according to warchant.com, he is number 1 on the list as of this moment to go back and coach his alma mater, which I would be very, very pleased if that happens.
We all would be. Well, Conrad, maybe not, but we would be
Paige
pleased.
will be happy, so I guess I have to be happy. Isn't that how that works?
That's what they say.
Happy wife? You're going to be happy if you get into Rambler Sports Bar and Grill this weekend to watch all the action, whether it's Alabama and Auburn on Sunday, if it's UAB taking on Tulane in New Orleans. But championship week has arrived. We already got conference tournaments going on, the SEC coming up next week, and then we get into March Madness, the best place to watch sports, period, besides the comfort of your own living room. Rambler Sports Bar and Grill, 1630 2nd Avenue South near Railroad Park. Not only the 283-inch projector screen, but all the video boards, all the large screens they have, wall-to-wall inside of the place. But it's an upscale way to enjoy sports action. Great menu of food. If you want to go in and just get some pregame warm-ups, some shareables like the great flatbreads, the Conecuh corn dogs, that's a fan favorite. You can do that. Pimento cheese balls are excellent. They got a charcuterie board that'll knock your socks off if you're into that, like I am. The Blazer Burger, you want to go with a smash burger, or if you want to go fork and knife and go a little bit fancier, the Mobile Bay shrimp and grits, or the Spanish Fort vodka pasta. They have steaks. They have all kinds of great drinks on the drink menu as well. It's Rambler Sports Bar and Grill. Get in this weekend. Take me up on the offer. You are going to be blown away by the experience of watching sports and enjoying fun with your family and your friends.
Let's get to the text line. Many of you have participated in that this morning. We have not had an opportunity to get to those. We will now at 205-834-9450.
Yes, Pat. Tim texted into the show, and he says, I think it was Pat who said that Alabama is right now a 4 seed in the SEC tournament. Can you explain how that is when they're a game ahead of Tennessee?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tim.
As of this moment, Tim, yes, Tennessee is behind Alabama. But if the chalk holds, that's what we've been talking about, and I apologize that I did not make that clear earlier. But if the chalk holds, meaning if Auburn beats Alabama and Tennessee beats South Carolina, then Tennessee would be the higher seed in Nashville. So that's why I said Alabama is a 4 seed.
So you're expecting Alabama to lose tomorrow?
If the chalk holds, they would lose.
I tried.
Well, don't go anywhere, Conrad. This one's for you. Dave texts into the show and says, Conrad has to own it. Quote, luck to Auburn chant at the West Vance aircraft hangar is typical Bammer. The students wearing bump caps as opposed to hard hats was funny, though. War Eagle, AU Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Dave, I'm sorry that you heard that. I've never heard that before. But
those words have never come out of your mouth as an Alabama graduate?
No, Pat.
I want to talk to your mom during the Texas game 2 years ago.
Well, that was different.
You got grounded.
Yeah, I did as an adult.
We talked to Barrett Slee, who handles Braves pre- and post-game, and this listener, who I don't know their name is because it's not listed, says, more Braves talk. Love it. You're going to get it. I thought Barrett was awesome giving us the Braves scoop and Major League Baseball because Barrett's obviously a huge Braves or baseball fan. He's a Braves fan, too. Very
opinionated.
Drake wants to know, do you guys see LeBron James giving Stephen A. Smith that piece of his mind last night?
So is it because,
interesting.
As you said, because Stephen A. has been critical of Bronny? Is that supposedly what the dust-up was?
Yeah, yes. It was something about Bronny, and you can go and look at the video on social media. There's a lot of great lip readers out there that have essentially figured out what they said. But, yeah, I mean, Stephen A. On First Take or whatever it is on ESPN this morning, he essentially said that LeBron confronted him, and he was confronted by LeBron not as the basketball player, but as a father and him trying to protect his son. And he didn't appreciate some of the things that Stephen A. Smith had said about him. At the same time, you kind of put your son in this situation, and he is a professional athlete just like you are,
Yep.
so he should not be shielded from criticism just like you should not be.
Is
So,
Bronny doing better than you thought he would do?
no, he's been a disaster.
Exactly.
It has gone exactly as we all thought it would.
Speak your mind, Stephen A. Josh texts into the show and he says, the grade on the cards matters. The Jordan rookie and PSA 10 is about $250,000. Going back to the Paul Skeens patch and
Yes, you need the 10.
Yeah, and our good friend Mike Newton from the Friends of Rickwood, he sent me a text a minute ago, and he was talking about the Jeter card that I mentioned. I think it was the Donruss one that was only going for like
Is that the one that was 95,000
$93,000.
or whatever it was?
Yeah. He was telling me that he thinks that dollar number is bogus. I think it would be.
Oh, it would be higher than that? Oh, wow.
Well, Steve from Tuscaloosa texts in and he says, LSU gymnast Livy Dunn is the Tua Tagovailoa of gymnastics.
Is she injured a lot? I didn't know that.
She's got the cracked patella now.
They both have great hearts, though, from what I understand.
Does she make him chicken Alfredo pasta before he pitches? These are all questions we will try to answer here in the next 2 hours. Blake Lovell, Southeastern 16, talking basketball next.
It is 12 noon. Welcome back in. This is the Friday edition of Three Man Front. Blake Lovell's going to join us from Southeastern 16, talk a little SEC basketball as we get ready for next week. You know, it's just been announced at Courtesy GMC for the month of March, up to $7,750 off MSRP on the 2025 Sierra HDs in stock. Courtesy has the SLTs, AT4s, the Denali's, all in stock there, right in Trussville at Courtesy GMC. Jocks listeners, they've taken advantage of the incredible deal I've been telling you about, the AT4X truck There's only a few left on the lot, $11,000 off MSRP. Sierra SLTs, they're now up to $13,000 off MSRP. And how about this deal right here? Up to $5,000 off MSRP on the all-new 2025 GMC Yukon and Yukon XLs. That's right, the 2025 version of the Yukon and the Yukon XL. Courtesy just got a full truckload, and they're going to go fast. As soon as they get them off that tractor trailer and they put them on the lot, those things are spoken for and they're gone. So take advantage of it this weekend. Get out to Courtesy GMC in Trussville, right off of I-459, exit 32. Check out all their inventory at courtesybirmingham.com.
One of our favorite visits of the week is Blake Lovell, who handles all the analysis you need for the Southeastern Conference basketball season and college basketball and beyond. He's with Southeastern 16. He joins us now on the Higginbotham Hotline. Blake, how are you? Happy Friday.
Yeah, doing well, guys. Good to talk to you as always.
Yeah, I brought it up the opening moments of the show yesterday. Given this week's events with the teams in our state, notably Auburn and Alabama, do you remember, Blake, when basketball used to be good?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You know, I mean, come on, these two teams both losing a game heading into this matchup on Saturday. I mean, you might as well just say the season's over, right? But no, I mean, in all seriousness, I mean, look, it's like even pointing out like the Auburn example of this, it's one where, you know, I mean, they're still the number one overall seed. They can lose tomorrow. They're still going to be the number one overall seed. They can lose in the SEC tournament. They're still going to be the number one overall seed. And so I think it shows you, like, for them, the body of work has just been ridiculous this year. And then, you know, for Alabama still, the overall body of work is going to outweigh some of these losses here recently. And, but as always, you know, it's all about seeding and matchups in the tournament and all that. So, yeah, it's important to still win these kind of games towards the end of the year.
Who gives you more pause, given maybe if we just single it down? Would it be Alabama's home loss to Florida? Or would it be Auburn going on the road and losing to Texas A&M?
Yeah, I think it's probably the Alabama one, just because obviously, you know, it's a home game, but at the same time, I think we sort of see now the kind of team that can give Alabama problems. And I don't know that there's a clearly defined kind of team with Auburn that we would say that about just yet. You know, I mean, because again, it's like Auburn's issues are fouling and that kind of stuff at times. And anytime you play at A&M, you're liable to give up 25 plus free throws, no matter who you are. So I don't know if that's just kind of an outlier in that sort of matchup. But I think with Alabama, again, I mean, look at the teams they've lost to recently, right? I mean, it's, you know, obviously Tennessee is one of those teams, but at the same time, look at the others. I mean, it's Auburn, it's Missouri, it's Florida. These are all high-octane offensive teams that can do the same thing Alabama can. That's match them, you know, point for point. And then it comes down to the defensive side of things. And, you know, overall, Florida's been better. Auburn's been better. Missouri, at times, has been up and down defensively this past stretch. Probably not as good as Alabama overall, but still, they've had some good defensive stretches and bad ones, just like Alabama has. So I think that's the thing for me. And look, how much different is this conversation we're having right now than we were having this time last year? It was the same thing. I mean, it was the same kind of teams. It was the same sort of scenario where we looked at it and says, Alabama's defense going to hold them back this year. And, you know, we thought it probably may, but they still wind up making the Final Four because they were so good offensively. So I think that's what it comes down to, is just they're still going to be able to beat a lot of teams that don't see them regularly in a tournament setting, just because you can't really stop them. And so I'm just curious to see how that plays out again, but it's all about matchups.
Blake Lovell joins us from Southeastern 16, does an outstanding job covering the Southeastern Conference. And, of course, you can get all the instant reaction on YouTube, on their YouTube page, Southeastern 16. Okay, let's talk about the bubble teams. Joe Lenardi came out with his latest bracketology this morning. 2 SEC teams that have been on and off the bubble. Now they're squarely part of the first 4 out, and I'm talking about Oklahoma and Texas. And as irony would have it, they play each other this weekend. Which team not only needs this game this weekend, but perhaps a win or two, in your opinion, in Nashville to get on the other side and be the 13th SEC team in the tournament?
Yeah, it's very interesting with these two, because I think that obviously there's some similarities. There are also, I think, some differences in kind of where they are. I mean, Texas had no non-conference wins to speak of whatsoever, right? And yet they're sitting here at 6-11, a little bit outside. And Oklahoma, you know, we keep saying, we're like, how is this team that was 4-12 and now 5-12 even near the NCAA tournament? Well, it's because they had those 3 non-conference wins against Arizona, Louisville, and Michigan. And so those are still doing some heavy lifting for them. And I think it's one where, listen, if you're the league rooting for how do we get the most teams in, you're probably going to say, well, maybe it's the team that is closest to, that spot right now needs to win, because if they don't, is the team behind them going to do enough to be able to overcome everything else, right? And the other bubble teams around them. So in that scenario, probably rooting for Oklahoma, because I do still think Oklahoma is closer than Texas is at this point. And so can they do that? Can they go on the road and get a win? Because remember, too, I don't think there's a scenario where these two are going to play in the SEC tournament. I don't think mathematically it's possible based on where they're at, unless they're advancing in multiple rounds. But I think, remember, they're going to wind up playing some of these other teams like a Georgia, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, something like that. And that's where maybe this isn't just the game that's going to decide who gets in and who gets out. Maybe it's going to take a little bit more next week here in Nashville to figure out, all right, maybe both these teams could still make a run and have a shot. I don't think that's reasonable to expect at this point. But right now, I think Texas probably wins tomorrow. And so it's like, is that good? Is that bad? Is that going to keep both of them out? Is Texas still too far away? Those are just the answers, I think, that are too close to call right now, based on also, like we always say, it's not just what these two teams do, it's what everybody else does. And you've seen some momentum on the bubble, from some of these other teams that have been right there with them, whether it's, looking at a team like Indiana, San Diego State, still kind of in that last 4 in type range. It seems like Boise State's done some good things. So it's still, I think, a little too early to know whether anything is really going to be decided with this one game tomorrow.
Blake, with Auburn, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, those likes, let's just put them as the elite of the elite in the SEC. If you take that next grouping, who is that next team that you think is built the right way that can make a serious run in the NCAA tournament?
Boy, I'd have felt a lot confident about that, more confident about that answer a week or two ago, because I think Missouri would have been the choice. But now I just don't know. I think Missouri's just not playing their best basketball at the wrong time here. Whether you look at the defense, and you mentioned that a minute ago with Alabama, and I said, hey, Missouri's been a pretty good defensive team this year, but you look at 4 of the last 5 games, they've given up 98 to Alabama, 92 to Arkansas, 97 to Vanderbilt, 96 to Oklahoma. And so I'm like, well, that's not good, because this is a team that felt like maybe they were a little different than a team, like Alabama or someone like that, whereas they could score, but they could also just completely wreak havoc on you defensively with how they force turnovers. And they're still forcing turnovers, but they're just not playing good defense. And I think, overall, that may be something that comes back to bite them, because, well, they get another great offensive team tomorrow when they play Kentucky. And so you've got to wonder, has Missouri sort of dropped off of that? And that's the thing, guys, honestly, beyond that, I don't know. I don't know if there's a team. Like, do I trust A&M just because they beat Auburn? Absolutely not. Like, I think it's sort of one of those where they are a matchup-based team, in my opinion. If they get a team that comes out and gets hot from 3, do I think Texas A&M is the kind of team that's going to play from behind and try to shoot themselves back into a game? Of course not. Ole Miss, we've seen the good and the bad of Ole Miss, right? They just got a great win against Tennessee. But we've also seen other times with them where it's just not enough defensively to be able to maybe get over some of those stretches where, they may struggle to score a little bit. It's weird to think, but the team that I feel like even a little momentum, I know they just lost by 13 to Arkansas. But I think Vanderbilt is as interesting as anyone, because I think the way they run their offense, they're not a great defensive team either, but the way they run their offense, I think they execute as well as anybody in the SEC. And so maybe Vanderbilt's one of those teams that winds up being the sleeper, because now I think they've moved off the bubble. They're probably going to wind up, unfortunately, maybe for them, in that 8-9 game, which is not exactly where you want. But let's say Vanderbilt slides to a 10, something like that. Who knows? I could see them beating a 7, beating a 2, and maybe making a Sweet 16 run or something like that.
Blake, in regards to the biggest disappointments of this season, it is a disappointment if you don't get to the big dance. It goes without saying, especially in this conference being as deep as it is this year. As of this moment, and who you think potentially is going to be on the outside looking at, what team, which coach is in trouble? Which team do you believe is the biggest disappointment in the SEC?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I think that probably, and I think Arkansas has certainly made a compelling argument now to move out of that, and not that we think Cal would be in trouble, but I mean, I think preseason expectations, Arkansas was much higher on a lot of people's lists. And so they may be the fair answer in terms of the most disappointing team, especially let's say they don't make the tournament, or even if they make the tournament and are in Dayton or something. I mean, that's not the expectation, right, for them. But, I mean, I think Texas has to be right there at the top just because when you have a player like Trey Johnson, I mean, he doesn't come around very often. And potentially not making the NCAA tournament when you have a player like that, right? I mean, we've seen those scenarios before where, Anthony Edwards at Georgia, and other examples that we've seen in recent years in SEC play. So I've got to think that even if Texas makes the tournament, and unless Trey Johnson just leads them to an unbelievable run, which is certainly possible because he's that good, you would have to believe that Rodney Terry is, getting a little bit hotter in terms of his seat, because I just don't think that's the expectation for them entering the SEC, is to be a team that, just kind of gets by. It's Texas, right? You want to be able to be right up there at the top. And, look, Oklahoma's the same situation. I mean, there were rumblings coming into this season about whether Porter Mosher was the right fit there. Was it just a good fit for both parties? And now, they're on the outside looking in too right now. So it quite honestly could come down to maybe who wins that game tomorrow, who gets in, who doesn't get in. But I've got to believe that those are probably the two we're going to be circling the most in terms of the coaching carousel this offseason, because otherwise I don't really see much movement unless it's something like Chris Beard going to Indiana, which would then open up, I think, a pretty interesting potential move for Ole Miss at that point.
Okay, so I was just asking about the most disappointing SEC teams. We've debated this topic on this program for the last month or so, and it has to do with Alabama and Auburn. What would you view as a disappointment? I mean, listen, you're outside of our listening audience. You covered this conference. Is it Final Four, or it's a disappointing season for Auburn? What about Alabama? Is it an Elite Eight? Is it another Final Four? What do you believe would be considered a disappointing year for those two schools in regards to the postseason madness?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that we're never going to just completely ignore what Auburn achieved during the regular season. It's still going to go down as a pretty historic accomplishment, right? But overall, I think we're looking at a scenario where if you don't make the Final Four, given the historic achievements that you've had here in this regular season, it has to be viewed as a disappointment. I mean, I don't know why anyone would say anything different, because this is kind of what you build for all year, right? It's for that chance to get to the Final Four, make, potentially an NCAA championship game and play for it all. And so I would have to think that for this particular team, given what we've seen them achieve this season. And then for Alabama, I still think your expectation is the Final Four. Like, even some of these things we talked about earlier, I just think this is a team. Remember, we're talking going into the season. I said, I think at full strength, this may be the best team in the country. And, certainly they've not been at full strength, lose a key player early in the season. Darion Reed's been out, a bit at times. And so it's like, you haven't had that. But still, I think your Final Four last year, you're still going to be a top 2 seed this year. So you've got to think, too, that is sort of the expectation. So what's disappointing? I mean, sure, listen, if one of those teams gets knocked out before the second weekend, that's an absolute disappointment. But I think, Elite Eight and beyond, but really it's got to be Final Four, right? I mean, just think about, again, how the expectations have changed for these two programs. And given what they've accomplished last year with Alabama, this year with Auburn, I mean, that's the destination for both of them at this point.
Blake, we get the Iron Bowl of basketball part 2 tomorrow at Neville Arena. It's going to be senior day at Auburn. Should be an action-packed environment. What is your feel for how the game goes and ultimately who comes out on top?
Yeah, I think this is one that, like, you would expect it to be a little different than last time. I mean, look, Alabama just did not shoot the ball well last time in that game, and we know that was one of the reasons why they just couldn't catch up enough to kind of be in a position where they ever got the lead or anything like that. And, with this one too, like, I think the Denver Jones, injury aspect, I mean, he was the difference in that last game, right? I mean, he was the guy that everybody was talking about coming out of it, not just because he made good shots, but the way he defended on the perimeter to force Alabama and, and Mark Sears into having some of those kind of games. And so I think that probably changes a little bit here. And I mean, too, right? Like, I mean, it feels like Auburn is a little banged up. We talk about, the Denver Jones injury. Of course, Broome got a little banged up in that A&M game, and those kind of things. So I think, look, I keep saying, I feel like motivation has been the guiding force for SEC teams over the past 2 weeks. It's been the teams who have been the most motivated going in with something to prove and feeling like there is something bigger to play for here. And I think, look, Auburn has something to prove coming off of that loss at Texas A&M, because everyone now is like, well, we told you, right? They're the third loss of the season, by the way. They're 27-3, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, what happened to Auburn? But you know, like, well, come on, Duke should be the number 1 overall seed and all this other stuff. One game throughout this entire thing that does not change your entire resume. I think Auburn has something to prove. We know Alabama has something to prove. And so I think that makes for a much more interesting setup maybe here. And I know the first time around it was the same scenario, but it's gotten a little different now with Alabama losing 3 of 5, with Auburn coming off a loss, and feeling like, all right, well, do you really have anything to play for? Of course they do. It's like you said, the Iron Bowl of basketball. Of course these two teams have something bigger to play for. And I think from Alabama's perspective, it's trying to see, you know, is there still a path to getting to a 1 seed, something like that. I mean, certainly if you win a game at Auburn, that can change the landscape a little bit. But yeah, I think that I probably still lean towards Auburn here, guys. But listen, I mean, what was that? I saw one spread out there earlier, which is, you know, a little early, it seems like, for it to come out. I think it was like 8.5 or 9. I don't know. To me, that just feels like a lot, especially considering how we've seen Alabama kind of be in a position sometimes to bounce back pretty well when they feel like they've had, you know, some disappointing performances.
I'm with you. Feels like a lot, 8.5 points. And who knows where that line is by tip-off tomorrow. He is Blake Lovell, at the Blake Lovell there on Twitter. He is a host there at Southeastern 16. You can also follow his work, especially on game days, and his great work and analysis and instant reaction to the games you see on the SEC slate. Blake, we know this is a busy time of year. Thank you for taking time for us, and hopefully we'll talk to you next week as we'll have tournament action going on in Nashville.
Absolutely. Sounds great, guys. Thanks.
Thank you. Blake Lovell joining us. All of our guests join us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
It has been a busy week for Golston Tree Service. We had those bad storms come through, and their crews have been all over central Alabama. You need to call Golston Tree Service, 205-337-4018. If you've had some damage that's taken place over the course of the last couple of days, or you have seen some trees that barely made it through those storms and you need to get them taken care of before those spring storms really start heating up. 205-337-4018. Family owned and operated for over 35 years. No job is too big or small for the great team there at Golston Tree Service. They have a certified arborist that handles everything. He will come to your house and he'll give you a free assessment. And no questions asked. You ask him what's going on, his opinion, he's going to give it to you. And you know what? If you want to hire Golston Tree Service, he's ready to go. If not, he understands. But that's the kind of honesty, integrity you're going to get at Golston Tree Service. Not to mention that 24-hour storm service work. Call them today. Golston Tree Service, 205-337-4018.
We got college football to talk about with Matt Baker, 1230. And we got more of your text, 205-834-9450. Your predictions, a lot of good thoughts coming in on the text line about the Iron Bowl of basketball part 2 coming up tomorrow. All of that and more, the Friday edition of 3-Man Frontlands from Pat and Conrad on Jocks 94.5.
You know, America was captivated. Landrum ordered a Cam Scattaboo t-shirt during his Christmas holidays because he had just an incredible game over in Atlanta.
Game worn, had vomit on it.
Well, according to the Arizona Republic, an interesting lawsuit has been filed against Cam Scattaboo, and he's being sued by a former teammate at Arizona State. Scattaboo is on the line receiving a civil complaint on behalf of his former teammate, walk-on offensive lineman Mathios Katagaris.
Oh, yeah, Katagaris.
Yep. He is seeking $300,000 in damages stemming from negligence resulting in an injury. The incident allegedly occurred in July of 2023 when Scattaboo is accused of jumping up and down on the back of a golf cart during football practice, which caused Katagaris to fall on the ground and injure his arm. Katagaris ruptured an elbow tendon, which required surgery, and he says he has not fully recovered, according to his attorney. He added that he incurred such hefty medical expenses that he still has outstanding bills. Scattaboo is being sued for one count of negligence resulting in the injury, as Katagaris never played football again and remains in pain.
Sorry it didn't work out for you. Seems like a reach to me.
I was about to say, we'd all be in a lot of trouble if we were suing our friends or former teammates for goofing off and doing something silly that ends up in somebody getting hurt. It's unfortunate, and I hate that for the guy, but I mean, I'm sorry, I'll say it. You're a walk-on offensive lineman. Like, I hate that happened to you, but were you expecting to go and have some professional football career? Like, probably not.
So process servers have been attempting to find Scattaboo to deliver the legal paperwork, but were unable to do so and went to the last resort, which involves publishing the summons in the Maricopa County newspaper.
Something tells me if they had been in Indianapolis last week, they probably would have been able to find him. I think we all knew where he was. Just saying.
Scattaboo was not asked about the lawsuit at the combine, but did admit that he was immature in years past. Here's my question. So just based on this story that I just read, if he was at practice and he was doing that, would there not be some type of coverage by Arizona State to cover maybe the medical bills of the other injured player?
Sounds like that there would, yeah.
I would think so.
That could be an option without knowing the details of.
Do you think if this wasn't a walk-on offensive lineman and this was a starting wide receiver that had fallen off and hurt his arm, do you think Arizona State would have paid for it?
Yes.
Yeah, probably so.
I just figure that, I mean, they're so, filled with insurance policies and things of that nature, or risk management. I would just think that maybe.
Just ride around the lazy river, dip your elbow in the cool, crisp water.
That might not be a good idea.
Well, as long as there's not an open wound.
As long as it's not post-surgery where you're.
Yeah, you don't want an open wound.
No.
Definitely don't want that in the water.
You need some shots, pre and post.
But I mean, I'm with you, Landrum. This seems like maybe a little bit of a reach and trying to capitalize on a situation.
Why was the lineman on the golf cart? That's my first question. Why?
Does he have a history of elbow problems?
Well, again, I'll just read the incident allegedly occurred in July 2023 when Scattaboo is accused of jumping up and down on the back of a golf cart during football practice, which caused Katagaris to fall to the ground and injure his arm. So I don't know if Katagaris was in the golf cart and then he fell out, or was he standing near the golf cart and something that Scattaboo done allegedly led him to trip and fall. It didn't go into detail.
Maybe if he had better balance, he would have earned a scholarship playing offensive line.
Okay, so you're in the game. Offensive lineman, you snap the ball, offensive lineman trips. Quarterback gets sacked. He tears his Achilles because the offensive lineman made a mistake, tripped, fell down, allowed him to get hurt. You think anybody's going to file a lawsuit in that situation?
How about this? Post practice, Scattaboo has got a locker near walk-on offensive lineman. He takes off his pads. He doesn't hang them in his locker. Offensive lineman is on his phone. He trips over pads, tears his ACL. Does Cam Scattaboo owe him $300,000?
No.
I'm so tired of the lawsuits. 205-834-9450 on the Jocks text line. We got plenty of texts that we will get to, but I wanted to update our folks there on, we have quarterfinal action going on in the SEC women's tournament, right? South Carolina leading Vanderbilt.
61-46?
61-46. Michaela Blake, she's got the scoring record, right?
Yes.
Yes. She's
57,
incredible.
was that?
At
55,
last
57,
glance
something
in
like
this game, she's been held to 13 points so far.
That'll work if you're South Carolina.
Yep.
Hey, might as well give a shout out to Florida. They knocked off Alabama in the women's tournament.
Did
last
Brian
night.
Edwards send you a text message about that?
No, Brian Edwards only sent me something after the men's game. He DM'd me a picture of Condon blocking a Grant Nelson shot.
Which one?
Was that the one where Oates thought that Condon hit him in the head
Maybe
when
so.
he met him there at the rim?
I don't know what exactly it was, but I was like, all right, Brian, I see how we're doing this.
That was
okay.
a heck of a block. How about our friends at Dobbs Ford Parkway East in Birmingham? You can get in there this weekend. Check out the great selection, Alabama's largest showroom selection of the F-150s. You want to go with the Dobbs Off-Road Edition? How about one of those Broncos Sports Mustangs, Escapes, Explorers? So many different options to choose from. These folks are salt of the earth, wonderful people, and they will work with you every step of the way. Total transparency, no hassle approach. They will beat any competitor's price. It's Dobbs Ford, Parkway East in Birmingham. Make sure when you go to Dobbs, if it's Joey Goshen or Rachel Goshen, his wife, one of the managing partners there at Dobbs, or anybody, just make sure that you tell them Landrum from Jackson 845 sent you. They're going to take care of you every step of the way. Dobbs Ford, go see you and feel the difference at Dobbs Ford. And once again, tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
Matt Baker from The Athletic covers college football, has been covering the lawsuits between Clemson, Florida State, and the ACC. He's going to join us next as he'll tell us exactly what went down to get that settlement. That's all next on Three Man Front. It is 12:34, Jocks 94.5 on this Friday. A lot of basketball talk today, but big news this week came with the settlement news coming from the Atlantic Coast Conference as Florida State and Clemson, they all put down their weapons and they've decided to play nice, at least for the next few years. Let's go now to the Higginbotham Hotline. Joining us from The Athletic, does an outstanding job covering college football. Matt Baker joins us here on Three Man Front. Matt, I bet you're just really disappointed that you will not be spending a lot of your off time in a courtroom somewhere.
Well, there's that. And then also, like, I don't know what I'm going to do in the mornings, right? Like, I've got a window after my wife gets, she leaves for work and before my kid gets up, where I spend, 30 minutes, an hour looking at a couple of different court cases and court records, seeing what the latest filings are and all this scintillating stuff with my first cup of coffee. And I don't know what I'm going to do here in a couple of days, couple of weeks, whatever it is, when this stuff is settled. I'm going to have to maybe get a hobby or a life.
Matt, with the flow of these court cases or court case, what has surprised you the most about how things have gone thus far?
As we look as a whole, like, I have some experience in the court system. This isn't the first time I've ever been checking lawsuits and filings and that, but it's still mind-boggling to me how slow everything moves. So it's been 14 months since Florida State and the ACC sued each other. And there's still, I would argue, if you read the court papers and all that stuff, there's still probably a dispute to some degree over who sued whom first. Like, they didn't even they were still arguing about where they were going to argue, like what courtrooms and what states they were going to argue after 14 months, where they didn't even get to the actual meat, the actual stuff that matters here. They were still arguing about where to argue. And, I'm a sports guy, right? Like you are. It's to see that up close and follow along all the time. I don't know what that says about our society or our system or anything like that. And far be it from me to have any intelligent thoughts on the matter. But that was one of the things that surprised me the most is just how glacial this is. And credit to the attorneys for bogging it all down and mucking it all up. So nobody ever had to actually decide anything in terms of what these contracts mean.
Okay, so if you look at what has been reported, and I know, listen, you've poured over legal documents for years in regards to all of these legal wranglings against the ACC by the individual schools, but on the peripheral, just looking at it for what it is right now, who do you think got the better deal, the ACC or the two schools that were suing the ACC?
The two schools, for sure. Like, nobody got exactly what they wanted, and that's a sign of a good settlement, right? A good negotiation where everybody feels like they win something, nobody feels like they won everything. That's compromise. That's a good thing. However, I do think Florida State and Clemson won more. They could leave now if they wanted. There's a path to that. More realistically, though, there's a path that is financially viable and legally viable and clear. We're in 4, 5, 6 years, somewhere in that range, when other contracts with the SEC and the Big Ten and the playoff and what have you, there's a storm coming. Okay, in the next 4 to 6 years, there's a storm coming in college sports in terms of the way it's going to look. And if Florida State and Clemson and UNC and Miami, if they were stuck in a situation where they couldn't get out of the ACC, or they didn't know if they could get out, or didn't know what it would cost, if there was all that uncertainty, they might have been left behind. They might have been in a very bad situation. But now they have clarity. Florida State and Clemson know what it's going to cost. They know the terms of engagement if they want to leave. The Big Ten, the SEC, the ESPN, Fox, Super League, whatever it is, whatever it's going to look like in a few years, they know what Florida State and Clemson have to do to become available. So that is the biggest win in all of this, other than the lawyers. That's the biggest win, and those guys got the most out of it. The schools did. As
far as that new day coming in, not only college athletics, but particularly, Matt, college football, the next 4 to 6 years, this and what it could trigger for conferences like the SEC, the Big Ten, and what that could potentially look like. Lay out some of those potential scenarios for our listeners.
Sure. So the Big Ten's TV deal, I think, is up around 2030, somewhere in that range. Again, they're all kind of coming due in the same general ballpark here. And if you look at when does conference realignment happen? When do teams look to leave? When do conferences look to add? It's around the time that TV contracts come up, because they can go to Fox or ESPN or CBS and whatever and say, hey, What if we added these guys? How much more money could we get? That type of thing. So, I mean, the one scenario is the Big Ten doesn't have a footprint in Florida, and Clemson continues to be a national brand. The Big Ten can say, you know what, Florida State and Clemson, maybe North Carolina, maybe Miami, whoever, these are schools that we would like to add. We want to become even bigger. We want to, push to becoming a 24-team conference or whatever it is. That could happen. The SEC could say, okay, well, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to step in. There's certain scenarios where private equity becomes involved, private capital becomes involved. Somebody says, I'm going to spend a ton of money and get everybody under one roof as a super league or super leagues. I mean, there's just so many different scenarios. But as we in-game to all of them, whatever they look like, super conferences, just what we have now, but a little bit different, anywhere in between, if I'm thinking when that's going to happen, it's going to be in the 2039 to 2034, 2033 window. And like I said, Florida State and Clemson and UNC and Miami and Virginia and whoever else, they now have a way to participate in that if and when stuff happens.
Talking to Matt Baker from The Athletic as we're kind of wrapping up the conversation on the ACC, Clemson, Florida State lawsuits. We might not know the number for a little while, but I know it was reported about 6 months ago that Florida State had spent over $3 million in legal fees going after the ACC. Where do you think that number, once it's all said and done, where do you think it will end up for Florida State? Since you're based in the state of Florida, I figured you would maybe have a better idea of that than what Clemson has spent.
Yeah, I've looked at some of these bills in the past. I don't have an updated number. I'm going to try and get one. Again, everything is not settled yet. It's going to happen by all accounts, but you still have to finalize it and cross the I's and dot the T's. So I'm going to wait a little bit before, because I want the final number. But I mean, certainly it's going to be millions of dollars for Florida State, for Clemson. Brendan Marks at The Athletic, he and I reported that UNC spent probably $600,000 thereabouts looking at options, doing due diligence there in case something happened. I would certainly think the ACC spent millions of dollars on legal fees as well. So, yeah, add it all up. I don't know, maybe we're talking $8-10 million on legal fees through all of this. That would be a semi-educated guess on what it would cost. And that's one of the reasons why they wanted to move it along, because lawyers are expensive. We're talking $900 an hour people. So the sooner this can end for everybody, the better their checkbooks are.
And you just mentioned North Carolina. And to me, when the settlement came out, I kind of laughed and talked about it on the air, because here in North Carolina behind the scenes, they were as pissed off as anybody in the league. They wanted to do exactly what Florida State did in Clemson, but they sat back, and outside of them spending that $600K, they didn't have to do anything, and they got all the answers they wanted, and now they have got a clear path to join the Big Ten or the SEC come 2030.
Yeah, to me, the biggest winner is North Carolina. Again, you can throw Miami in there. You can throw Virginia Tech, those type of schools. You can put them in there too. But North Carolina, the perception in the industry is that if the ACC exploded tomorrow and everyone became a free agent, UNC would be the top priority. North Carolina is one of the 10 biggest states in the country. They are a growing state. UNC is obviously the flagship school there. They're one of the top 10 or so public schools in the country. Obviously, basketball's got a great tradition. Football's got Bill Belichick now, which will get people paying attention. They have the potential to win at a high level in football, on and on and on. UNC's got what you would want. So the thought is that they would be attractive to the Big Ten or the SEC. And as you said, they got what they wanted here. They got clarity. They got a roadmap to get out for a manageable, relatively speaking, manageable amount of, say, $75 million in a few years. It's a way for them to go out. They have the path there. It's just a matter of, do they want to open it, and who will want to open it on the other side, in 4, 5, 6 years.
That is Matt Baker's done an outstanding job covering all of the legal wranglings going on between the ACC and those two individual schools. Matt, I promise next time we have you on, we're going to talk X's and O's. We're actually going to talk football coming up. But we always appreciate your time and your insight on this very difficult situation that had so many layers to it, but it appears that it has finally been put to bed.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. That is Matt Baker joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. All of our guests join us on the Higginbotham Hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Well, it's Friday. It's the start of the weekend and a perfect time to unwind. Invite you to try it if you haven't. Mystic Beverage sparkling water that's infused with various cannabinoids for relaxation and focus. You can find them at your local Piggly Wiggly. And another bonus, they're made right here in Blount County, Alabama. I love the Lift Blend. It features the CBD, the CBG, the Delta 9, but also has that all-important ingredient, the green coffee bean extract. It's going to boost both your body and your mind, pick you up if it's been a long week, or maybe you just got a lot going on that day and you don't feel like another pot of coffee. You can go with the Lift Blend. Also, they have the High Hills Delta 9 available in the 5 milligram and the 15 milligram for a balanced and elevated vibe. The Nirvanic, the 25 milligram Delta 8, a smooth, calming experience, perfect for unwinding. It's a great alternative to alcohol. You enjoy a refreshing, hangover-free drink. Delicious flavors they're available in the blood orange, the southern berry is my favorite, mango and watermelon. There's no sugar. It's not sweet to taste. You're going to love it. It's Mystic Beverage, mysticbeverage.com. Once again, find them at your local Piggly Wiggly. We continue. Appreciate our visit with Matt Baker, Wimp Sanderson in the first hour. We talked to Blake Lovell as well. Richard Hendricks talking Alabama-Auburn, the SEC basketball slate. In the next hour, more of your texts and more of your phone calls. We continue the Friday edition of Three Man Front and Jocks 94.5.
We're back on three-man front on this Friday. If you missed any of our interviews today, Wimp Sanderson, Barrett Sallee, Blake Lovell, Matt Baker, you can download the Three-Man Front podcast. Listen to it in its entirety. Earlier in the program, we told you about the story that came out last night that Auburn football is going to move their game up with Baylor one day. It's not going to be played on Friday, August the 29th. Also, it was announced that Georgia Tech and Colorado is going to also move their game up to Friday, August the 29th. So let's take a look at that opening weekend of the college football season, Landrum, because it all starts on Thursday night when you have Nebraska against Cincinnati. And then on Friday, you've got Auburn at Baylor, Georgia Tech at Colorado. And then on Saturday, the first weekend of the college football season, you've got Texas at Ohio State, LSU at Clemson, Alabama at Florida State, Syracuse versus Tennessee over in Atlanta. On Sunday, you've got Notre Dame at Miami, South Carolina versus Virginia Tech. And then you're going to wrap up the Labor Day weekend on Monday. TCU visits Bill Belichick in North Carolina in Chapel Hill. So that's on the Monday. So that's the opening weekend so far. There might be some other games that might be moved around, but that's a pretty good weekend.
Yeah, it is. And what we've learned in the portal era is we really don't know these rosters, not as well as we used to year to year, season to season. So right now, it looks like a pretty good slate. It could end up being a great slate. It could end up being a lackluster slate. But do we really care when it gets to that point?
No.
I can tell you, me for one, I do not. I will watch teams get their eyes beat in for the first 3 weeks of the season just because I'm appreciative to be watching it.
Yep. Ready for football to be back. No doubt.
By the way, an update from the SEC women's tournament. South Carolina still leading, but Vandy has closed the gap. Told you Michaela Blakes, she had 13 points there in the third quarter. She is already up to 20, but Vandy trying to keep within shouting distance, but about 2 minutes left. No big surprise.
Yeah, it was a tough loss last night for Alabama, losing to Florida as they tried to get the ball down low to Sarah Ashley Barker. And unfortunately, no foul was called, and Alabama loses to Florida.
Let's go to the phone lines, 800-239-WJOX. Our buddy Steven wants to talk Alabama hoops. Hey, Steven, what's up?
Hey, guys. I'm kind of leery about the tournament. Even if Bama's a 4 seed, I've got to go through Florida and Auburn again. Playing a physical team is just kind of hard for them right now. I don't know why, but, and then even if you go 1 and out in, the SEC tournament, if you get another physical team in the NCAA tournament and you go 1 and done then, and, that's going to be hard too. But, I just don't know. It's just like they've digressed in the past month or so.
Yeah. It's hard not to be disappointed if you're an Alabama fan based on where you were 7 games ago and then potentially going 2-5 down the stretch and losing twice to your in-state rival. Again, though, I go back to what I said yesterday. I think it's easy to take this and to throw the baby out with the bathwater and to just conclude that Alabama's season is going to end in disappointing fashion, but they've played in the toughest conference in all the land and historically maybe the toughest conference we've ever seen in one season of college basketball. I would reserve a little bit more room for optimism, Stephen.
Well, I'm being optimistic. They could go into Auburn and win by 20. Who knows? There's anything can happen on any given day. But I'm always optimistic. But I just don't know. But hey, Pat, I do 2 things. One, when Feinbaum gets back into town, we need him and Vickers on. And then 2, I heard that Pat got all of his knowledge from 2 special people, and that's Brad Edwards and Max Bender.
That is true. That is the latter part of that is absolutely 100% accurate. Yes, Max and Brad, they're the I guess the puppet masters behind me. Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, it would just be lovely to hear Neil just with that lovely laugh that he has.
Well, I still have the laugh track. A lot of people don't realize that he only laughed about probably 25% of the time you heard his voice. Like we had 2 or 3 different laugh tracks of Neil Vickers. And he would be in the newsroom and like we would say something that was totally inappropriate. And then Neil would start laughing and then he would look at us in the other room and he'd be like going, why is my phone being blown up right now? Like, what have you done to me? But yeah, it was Neil Vickers. He's one of a kind.
Wasn't there a story about Neil about some dog or something or another?
Yeah, he shot a dog. There was a dog in his neighborhood. Now again, he lived out in the middle of nowhere in Still, Alabama. I didn't mean Still's in the middle of nowhere. I meant like he had a farm and away from town, and there was some wild dogs that was trying to get into some of his livestock and some of his chickens.
Yeah.
And so he kept telling people to get those dogs taken care of, and they didn't. So he decided to get a pistol and his shotgun and go out and take care of it himself, and he did.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that story, but yeah.
Neil's a great
All
guy.
right.
Wonderful human being.
Yes, he is. Yes, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate the phone call.
Appreciate it, Stephen. 205-834-9450. The text line is open. We have more of your texts coming in. Going back to our Twitter poll question of the day, which Conrad will review and go over, but one of our listeners saying, during your recap of the poll question, I was suddenly transported to the cast of Seinfeld. You guys were very petty. Loved it. Well, thank you. And we appreciate you listening. We try to be petty whenever we can.
Yeah, so if you missed it earlier in the show, our poll question today, pretty simple for you. How bad will Auburn beat Alabama tomorrow in round 2 of the IBOB?
Why would you say it like that?
Just
why don't you just say what?
You just read the question.
What result do you think will come out of the game tomorrow? Not like how bad will Auburn win?
Quit trying to influence people's votes.
I woke up with hatred in my heart. What can I say? But again, question, how bad will Auburn beat Alabama tomorrow? Your 3 options are Auburn wins in a blowout, double-digit win, Auburn with a close win, or Alabama pulls the upset over Auburn. And leading the way right now is with 38% of the vote is Auburn winning by double digits. In second place, Alabama getting the upset. That has 32% of the vote. And in last place, Auburn wins a close one with 30% of the vote.
Update on the Vicker story that you were telling. Someone says lifelong Still resident, and that dog lived at the house behind him.
Oh, okay.
Could be Neil texting the show. I don't know.
He's trying to defend himself.
And if Conrad was not already feeling down in the dumps, this one rolls in and says, look for Nate Oates to bolt for Indiana or Texas.
How about that? What do you think about that, Conrad?
He looked good in a good old cowboy hat.
Just doesn't sound the same as my North Carolina rumor I was trying to spread.
We continue. Hour number 4 on this Friday. 3-man front, Jocks 94.5.
It is 1 o'clock. Welcome back in. This is Three Man Front. Landrum, Conrad, I'm Pat. We'll be with you until 2 o'clock. Take you up to the Paul Feinbaum Show. Molly Robinson, somewhere in the Atlantic coastal area of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, somewhere in that vicinity.
She Amelia Island?
I have no idea.
I just saw where they have a vintage car show this weekend.
Oh, I bet you
Amelia
that's where
Island.
she is. Don't you think that's probably what she's doing?
Yeah,
100%.
probably.
Yeah. She texted me earlier. She had a couple questions that she wanted me to answer, and I answered and told her I hope the trip is going well. She said they're having a blast. So
they made it. That's good.
Well, she was just sad she got left out of a particular conversation we had on the show earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
I told her she could download the podcast. I ain't got time to go back and forth about this business.
I like to think that she's
nonsense.
I like to think that her and all of her friends have listened to the show all day long.
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me?
Out there on the beach
On
or
the
wherever
beach,
they are.
laying out, listening to the Three Man Front. Hey,
Molly's friends.
Like, what's the beach like? Like.
Does Molly talk like that?
No, but she admitted to us on the show the other day that if there was a drinking game and every time one of the girls in the group, the bridesmaids, said you had to drink, she was like, no, we'd be done. So she admitted to it.
Yeah.
But she doesn't
No, she doesn't.
that much. Just said maybe the
That
chubby
much.
friend of the group.
Is there a chubby friend in the group?
I have no idea, but it seems like most I've been around, there is one chubby friend in the group. And usually that chubby friend gets grouchy and usually tries to boss everybody around. It's just been my experience.
Well, there's a strategy to it, right? Because makes some other people look, you know, there's a strategy to it.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to make yourself look better.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Obviously, women don't think that way because our wives married us.
That is true. That's a very true statement.
I was told that women love with their ears. They love with their ears. They listen, and men with their eyes. You two agree or disagree with that?
I'd say there's probably a lot of truth to that.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. By the way, South Carolina won 84-63.
It was like a 5-point game within.
They finished the game on a 16-0 run.
It's amazing.
Yeah, they're pretty good.
Yeah, they'll be all right. Tomorrow, right here on Jocks 94.5, you can hear number 7 Alabama against number 1 Auburn. This is the 170th meeting of the IBOB. Alabama leads the all-time series 102-67. But do you realize in the last 16 games played between these two teams, they have split 8-8. 7 of the last 10 games have been decided by 9 points or less. And the current spread's 8.5 Auburn.
There you go.
This will mark the first time that Auburn and Alabama have met as ranked teams twice during the same season. Isn't that incredible? Never happened before. Both teams being ranked twice. Bruce Pearl at Auburn is 9-11 versus Alabama. Nate Oates is 6-6 against Auburn.
About to be 7-6, Pat.
I'm just telling you where they currently stand. If you remember the first matchup last month, Auburn won by 9. Janai Broome put up 19 points, 14 rebound, got that double-double. 6 Tigers finished in double digits against Alabama. The Tide shot 13% in the first half against Auburn from the three-point arc. Auburn is looking to sweep Alabama for the third time in the last 7 seasons. Prior to 2019, the Tigers had not swept the Crimson Tide since 2009. Another reason why Bruce Pearl has done an incredible job. The Tigers will honor 6 seniors tomorrow. Denver Jones, Chad Baker-Mazzara, Chaney Johnson, Miles Kelly, Jaheim Hudson, and J.P. Pegues.
Before or after the game? Do you know?
I do not know that.
UAB did theirs before the game, and it
worked out well.
It worked out well. It was not a distraction. They won the game.
Alabama's number 1 in scoring offense in college basketball. Auburn is 95th in defense. Alabama is 7th worst in defense. They give up 81 points per game.
So they're 350 something in defense in the country.
Yes, that is true. But Alabama, Conrad, is 3rd in the country in 2-point shooting. Did you realize that?
They have been very good 2-point shooting team this year.
60%
Well,
inside the 3-point
If
arc.
you're going to score that many points, you're not going to be good from the outside. They got to come from somewhere.
Yes.
Janai Broom is 6th in America for double-doubles. He has 17 this season. Yaxel Lindeborg at UAB, he got another double-double last night. He is now 3rd in America. He has 19. Janai Broom also 6th in America in blocks. Here's another great stat for you. Alabama at the free throw line, 191st in college basketball.
I'm going to be honest with you, Pat. That's better than I was expecting.
Auburn is 75th in free throws.
Who's number
It's a
one?
big gap.
I do not have that number in front of me.
You see San Diego?
Probably Injit. Get a lot of them late in games. They're
Yes.
really fun. They're really fundamentally sound. Don't jump off the screen with athleticism, but very fundamentally sound.
Ken Palm has Auburn playing the toughest schedule so far in college basketball. Alabama is number 2.
Yeah, sounds about right.
With a win, Auburn would set a program record with his 16th SEC win, 28th regular season win. A 16th SEC victory would be tied for the 6th most in SEC basketball history. Once again, just proving how historic this run has been for Auburn this season.
Team free throw percentage in the NCAA right now as it stands, Wisconsin. Number 1 in the country at 83.44%.
That's really good.
I'll play.
That is really good.
Does it surprise you that Oklahoma comes in 5th at 79.79%?
All right, so I'm just curious. How many attempts has Oklahoma had and how many has Wisconsin had?
Wisconsin has had 598, Pat. Oklahoma has had 658.
Jeepers.
So a difference of 60 free throws.
That's
I mean, that's about 20 a game on average. It's a lot.
Trying to find the next SEC team. And you have to scroll.
go to the next page.
Yeah, UAB actually comes in 48th, which they were very good last night. Goodness gracious. Are all the SEC teams? Yeah, Auburn is at 76. I'm trying to find.
Yeah,
Are they the second best in the SEC after Oklahoma?
Auburn hits about 75% of their free throws.
I mean, that's
Now, Alabama's at 71%, if I'm not mistaken.
And Tennessee comes in 84th at 74.78%. Vandy's at 79th. And Texas at 94. There's some bad free throw shooting teams. Make your free shots. Kentucky is at 102. If you were wondering, that's stats aren't everything, right?
well, apparently not, because Oklahoma has the best free throw percentage in the conference. and
Yeah, but they're playing for their tournament lives.
They are.
They wouldn't even be in the conversation, Conrad, if they hadn't been able to knock down free throws and three-pointers.
So now that we've talked about it, they're going to lose tomorrow night on a missed free throw, right?
Of course
or something
they are.
like that. That's how this is going to go.
And
Yep.
if you're Oklahoma, what kind of bad luck is that? You need a win potentially to get in the NCAA tournament, and you're playing a Texas team that has absolutely gone south the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, needed them to be playing really, really good basketball.
Yeah, we just needed them to win like one of those games
Yep.
over the last 2 weeks. Just one. And all of a sudden, it's a completely different conversation. Because as of this moment, let me throw out my disclaimer. If the chalk holds, and Oklahoma will be favored against Texas, I suppose, Oklahoma will play Vandy. And that would be that would be a good quality win if you win in Nashville against Vanderbilt, don't you think?
Yeah, as long as the committee's paying attention.
And then after that, it would be Missouri.
Yeah. Be solid.
And you just beat Missouri.
That's two tournament teams that you would have on your resume as wins.
And then you could get to the point to where you'd play Tennessee. So there's an opportunity for an Oklahoma. I just don't think Texas has it in them. Even if Trey Johnson would have to score 55 points a game. Maybe he can get you 30.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the thing with Texas. If you get in, you can win a game with him just because of how dominant he can be. But
Texas and Arkansas, as of this moment, would play first round in Nashville.
you saw how that one went recently.
Yeah, that would be Wednesday. So the Wednesday docket would start off, if the chalk holds, South Carolina versus Mississippi State, your first game. Texas, Arkansas would be your mid-afternoon game. Then the early night session is LSU, Georgia, and then Oklahoma, Vandy would wrap up the night, round one.
Oh, round one's not as sexy as the other rounds usually anyways.
Were you telling me, or was it somebody else around here that was telling me the prices for the SEC basketball tournament?
It was not me. I've not looked at ticket prices.
It is incredibly large. I mean, they were telling me about the booklets and they're definitely taking advantage of the fact that you've got 16 teams that will be there, and also the way the league has played this year.
Okay, that's for all of the session. Or is that just for that one day? Oh my gosh. Okay, so this is I'm trying to figure out if this is for the entire tournament or just for all of the sessions on Wednesday. But the cheapest ticket here is $675.
Does that get you in for every session?
It says all sessions. But I don't know if that's for the first round or the entire tournament.
There's no way that's for the first round. I wouldn't think.
I would think that would be the entire tournament. But still. Oh.
I mean, those 4 games that you gave us, those would be 4 games, right? And if it's $675, the math doesn't work out.
Okay, so if you wanted to go to the semifinal.
Wait, what was that number again you just gave us?
$675.
Okay, so divide 675 by 15 because there would be 15 games in the tournament.
That would be $45 per game.
It's not too.
No, that's not bad.
I mean, if you're willing to go to every game,
yeah.
I mean, dadgum, if you've got an Auburn, Alabama, or Florida, Tennessee in that championship game.
I was about to say
that would be a whole heck of a lot more than $45.
If you are a very confident Auburn or Alabama fan, I suppose, and you want to go ahead and buy a ticket to the championship on Sunday because you assume your team's going to be there, you could get in for